as we started unpacking it later theologically, realized this is probably true. Because some people will say, well, demons lie all the time, but not always. Sometimes they're compelled to tell the truth. And he said, I convince people. So this is part of the cherubim. He's part of the cherubim, which is an intellectual function. He says, I convince people. So in us, it's an intellectual conviction that he puts in our minds. I convince people that they cannot be separated from the particular good. Okay. And so I stood back and I said, that's a whopper. Because I knew the structure of sacrifice. Remember, in offertory, you have to be willing to be separated from a particular good in order to give it to God. And that means when he convinces people, I can't be separated from this thing. That's how he subverts the remainder part of the sacrifice where we're willing to die to ourselves all the way to the end. And so he knew so I realized that's how he ended sacrifice. And then he just looks at me and says, it's how I took Adam and Eve out. It's how I'm taking your church out. It's how I took your government out. He said, it's at the root of every sin and every defect that every human being has. And later he said, it's the cause of mediocrity in every single human being, which is absolutely true. Because in virtue, when we're striving for virtue, which is the greater good, to perfect ourselves in some particular aspect, which is the greater good, we have to be willing to be separated from certain things. Just take temperance. If I want to gain temperance, to master the virtue of fasting, for example, I have to be willing to put aside the lesser good of the pleasure I get out of food in order to achieve this greater good.
Makes sense. When do they gain access to our minds? We talk about the innocence of children and the pure love that they can give us.
Yeah.
And then at some point in time, everybody loses it.
That's right. It's ultimately when God allows it. So in the spiritual warfare, there's kind of a misunderstanding. People have this idea that demons get you just to maraud and do whatever they want. When St. Peter said, be sober and watchful, for the lion goes around seeking someone to devour. It doesn't mean he gets to hammer anybody he wants. It means he's constantly watching us. That's the going around. He's constantly watching to see where the weaknesses are and where he could take us out. And then he might test or probe. And if God lets him go in, then he goes in. But it means that the spiritual warfare, the entire battlefield is completely controlled by Christ. So even the demons can't do anything in relationship to us unless Christ gives them permission. So Christ is the one who allows them access at certain points. And the reason he allows us access to us is to test us. Will you sacrifice for me?
Is it through flaws in the world, like...
AC breaking? An American Home Shield warranty can help protect major home systems and appliances. And if AHS can't repair the covered item, they'll replace it. It's all in the ball. American Home Shield. Sign up today at ahs.com.
Pornography?
Yeah.
I mean, kids are seeing pornography at age 8.
Yeah.
Probably earlier.
Yeah, that's it.
And
so
then,
he'll use those as means.
And then that creates some type of a desire.
That's right. A disordered desire for it. Yeah. Part of it also has to do with the fact that demons can actually use that to inspire other people, to expose other people or kids or something like that to things that are evil. I've actually had a case where the demons would drive people around this woman in order to victimize her. So they can actually, that type of thing can happen, but it's not that common. Usually what they'll do is they'll use other people to introduce bad things into the person's life, and then the person, because of fallen human nature, we have a proclivity towards, like, let's just take pornography, we have a proclivity towards what we call concupiscence, which is a desire for pleasure that's immoderate and disordered. And so if we don't do things, and this is where parental formation and virtue, and getting them the sacraments and things like that aids the children in being faithful to that, so that they can actually combat that particular aspect of our fall or original sin that we kind of inherited as a result of that. Then what the demons do is they can play on that disordered inclination that we have and then start just driving it.
Do you think that successful exorcisms could be miracles? I mean, and the reason I ask is we talked about the last several weeks of my life and some of the things that I've experienced here that I don't want to go into yet, maybe at another time. But, you know, with what I did experience and how real it was, in the end, no matter how terrifying it was, it only strengthened my faith in Christ and God and the Holy Spirit immensely.
Yeah.
Immensely.
One of the things that you learn as an exorcist is what Christ said. He said, he gives time to the apostles, count yourself as useless instruments. When you're, as an exorcist, you can pray and pray and pray until the cows come home, but if Christ doesn't step in and actually cause liberation, nothing happens. Demons have actually said to me, he says, you can't make me do anything, which is actually true. As a human being, I can't make any demon do anything. But then my retort to them is, but he can. And so he uses us as instruments to basically afflict the demon, to punish him to a certain point, and then it's at that point that Christ steps in and Christ causes the liberation. So one time I was asked in a public venue, how many people have you liberated? And I said, none. But I've been in the presence of liberations where Christ, and I've done my work as an exorcist, and then Christ is the one who liberates. And so that liberation is both an act of mercy, but also one of the things that people very often don't quite understand about this, they think, oh, possession is the worst thing. Actually, possession is not the worst thing. The worst thing is sin, mortal sin specifically, where you've committed such a grave sin that you're under the power of the demons from a legal point of view. Whereas possession is not necessarily the worst thing. In fact, possession, especially if it kind of protracts for any length of time, the people become holier through the battle, through the struggle. It's like a guy who goes off to, there's a big difference between a soldier who's never seen combat and one who has. And so this is whereas the guy who's seen the combat, he's much more fashioned, much more honed than the guy that maybe went through a lot of good training and could be a good soldier, but he just didn't have that opportunity. Well, it's the same thing here. When people go through just the brutal battle and that type of thing, the amount of sacrifice and self-denial and everything that they have to go through, and the virtue that they have to achieve in order to conquer this thing is quite admirable.
Do angels have access to our mind?
They do, God permitting.
What does that look like?
So the angels can do actually two things in relationship to us. The first is they can put an image in our imagination and even put a perspective on that image, just as the demons can do the same thing. So the demons can not only just put an image in your imagination, because we get these thoughts, where did this come from, right? But they can even put a perspective on, like, this would be really good, right? And this is why sometimes people will come to me, like normal men, normal heterosexual men will come to me and they'll say, I had this bizarre experience where I was in this situation and I had this thought of pedophilia, and I had this kind of inclination of the good. I said, well, that's not your junk, right? That's not you. Demons can make anything look appealing. One exorcist contacted me recently because he had kind of gone through that type of thing. He was working with this one woman who, by any stretch of the imagination, was not good looking whatsoever. But when she walked in the door during one of the sessions, the demons skewed his perceptions and his in relationship to it. And he said he looked at her and he felt this inclination, like, she's just beautiful. And then he realized,
there are trucks, and then there's the 2026 GMC Sierra. It's the truck. Get 0% APR on this Sierra Denali. With employee pricing for everyone, that's over $13,000 total value.
You haven't seen the sun in days. So at this point, it'd be easier to just fly to it. Go on, book it. It's easy.
Intellectually, he was like, that ain't true. And so he just stopped, did some prayers, broke it, and then when he looked at her again, he says, no. And so he just stopped, did some prayers, and then he realized, and he felt, and his in relationship to it, and he said he looked at her and he felt this inclination, like, she's just beautiful. And then he realized, intellectually, he was like, that ain't true. And so he just stopped, did some prayers, broke it, and then when he looked at her again, he says, ugly as sin, right? So the point being is they can get that perspective. The angels can also do the same thing, because perceptions are either in congruity with reality or they're not. For example, let's just take transgenderism. People's perceptions about who they are may or may not be. If you're, if you're a normal heterosexual male, you think, hey, I'm a male, and this is then my perceptions are incongruent with reality. But if I'm some dude who thinks he's a woman, your perceptions aren't incongruent with reality. And so demons are constantly trying to put perspectives on it that either exaggerate or skew or falsify your perception of reality, whereas the good angels can actually do the opposite. They can put perspectives on the imagination, and then so that you get a greater perception of this is the truth of the matter, this is the reality of it. So one of the ways that you'll notice that is you'll get a bit of clarity in a situation. All of a sudden you'll see the perspective and realize, okay, that's how this is actually done. The one thing that angels can do, which demons never do, is the angels can then, so there's 3 parts of our intellect, I'm not going to go into all 3, but there's 2 parts that I want to talk about. The first is the brain. That's the image part. And they can put a perspective, they can affect that. But then there's a part of our intellect that's entirely immaterial. And the reason we know that, for example, is when we die, then people in heaven, you hear about these with people who actually die and they actually go through a judgment and they might see Christ and that type of thing. Their intellect is functioning independently of their body. So we know there's a part of the intellect that's in part of that. There's also certain operations that we perform, like the ability to self-reflect upon ourselves. That we know that there's a part of our intellect that's purely immaterial, that can function independently of matter. This is why animals, even apes, don't have that same kind of self-reflection. Even when they see themselves in the mirror, it's kind of a fascination to them, but that's all at the level of the material. But with human beings, we have this. What the angels can actually, that immaterial part has the ability to make judgments about things, that something's right or true or that type of thing. How do we know that? We can have, I'll give you an example. A guy, his wife, when he first gets married, his perspective on her is, she's wonderful, she's lovely, I love her, she's just such a great wife, she's beautiful, etc. And his intellectual judgment is the same as that. But then what can happen is that over the course of the marriage, bad things happen, and so his perspective on her begins to change, and then also does his judgment changes. But he can make a choice to change his judgment about that. Like if he starts thinking his wife is really bad and nasty, she may or may not be. He can start making a choice of, you know what? I'm not going to judge her that she's that bad. I think she's ultimately a woman of goodwill. It's just that I'm suffering in relationship to it. That means I got to shore up stuff on my part. So I can make a judgment, or I can make a choice to start looking at her, judging her differently. So that's one of the things. Okay, why is that important? Because angels can strengthen, it's called illumination. They can illuminate the mind, that immaterial part, so that when we make that act of judgment, we see it with much greater clarity and strength and depth. And so they can enlighten our minds. And so you can ask them, give me good images and then help me to see, help me to enlighten my mind in relationship to it. The fathers of the church actually say it was the angels who taught the Greeks philosophy, people like Aristotle and Plato, and that's why there's such a radical shift in their philosophy from the materialists to Plato and then to Aristotle.
What rank structure of the angels is putting images and clarity into our mind?
Primarily those of the rank of angel, the very lowest.
The guardian angel.
The guardian angels.
Archangels?
The archangels can, at times. They can also do it as well. It depends. There are certain people, according to the fathers of the church, that their stature in life is so important that God intends for their particular life that he actually will assign angels that are higher in the hierarchy. Because how high in the hierarchy of angels your angel is directly proportional to how important you're supposed to be in human history, they say. And so, but there are certain people that God will actually assign an archangel to guard them, at least while they're fulfilling that role. So like people in positions of political power are generally considered that. Priests, bishops, that type of thing are given a guardian angel, an archangel, in order for relationship to that. If there's a particular function that they're going to play in relationship to us as a human being that's extremely important, they come from the rank of archangels. So Gabriel, Michael, Raphael were considered part of the archangel.
Let's take a quick break.
So many of these places that I go have deep roots and meaning. To be able to share those stories.
I'm excited to introduce.
Question for you. All right, Father Ripperter, we got a hot question for you.
Okay.
So, I want to understand, why is Christianity the only religion in the world that is acceptable to disparage?
Well, Satan is the prince of this world, and it's pretty clear, at least it seems to me, but it's pretty clear, I think, to a lot of people that Satan and the demons are gaining much greater ascendancy over the world, and as they influence the world more and more, they will use people and they will use the things of this world in order to go after the one religion that they know is true. I often tell people that, in heaven, the demons actually, because the fact that Christ was going to become incarnate, and they actually watched Christ preach Revelation, they know it perfectly. And so as a result of that, and they know that he was the Messiah that was bound to come, that he was going to be the one that was incarnate. So they know, not from faith anymore, because they lost their faith, but they know just by deductive reason that this is the true religion. All other religions don't have human beings who started them, whereas Christ, who's God, is the only one who started this religion, and they saw it. And so they know the rest of the other religions don't wash. And so you can, as the demons gain greater and greater control of the world, and as evil becomes more and more in place, there's two factors that come into play. The first is that demons move people to punish the Christians, which we saw in administrations even in this country, where they were going after the Christians. And then you'd look at these people and you can tell these people were not living good lives, that were persecuting the Christians. So the demons will inspire the people to go after the Christians. We also see this in relationship to certain religions attacking the Christians in different countries and that type of thing. So you see that. The other part of the dynamic has to do with the fact that St. Thomas talks about it in a question in the Summa, but there's a structure to how human beings go from pursuing and seeing the good to actually pursuing things that are evil. And it basically it's a process in which we have natural inclinations to things that are good. And so, for example, he gives the example, a guy recognizes that fornication's immoral, right? So he recognizes that. But then Bessie Sue walks in, and she's just gorgeous. And so he ends up falling with Bessie Sue, and St. Thomas says he thinks that it's, he kind of gives in, like it's okay in this one instance. And then, but he keeps hanging around Bessie Sue, so he keeps falling with her, and eventually he starts thinking that, well, fornication isn't wrong, And then, as he keeps fornicating, then what he actually thinks is that, well, no, fornication's actually a good thing. And then what happens next? Well, people who tell me fornication's bad, they're evil people, because I know fornication's good. That is the exact progression we actually saw in this country. The greatest generation knew that fornication was immoral, but they started fornicating behind the scenes, and that's where fornication really started. And how do we know? Because when the hippie generation started the fornication openly, they didn't stop them. Because, hey, well, can't tell them we did that because we did it, right? So it goes from, no, they can't do it, but they fell from time to time, to, okay, now they were openly doing it. Then, by the time you get to the 80s and 90s, you should live with your girlfriend before you get married, which is a good thing, right? Because you should fornicate if it's going to work. And then what's the last thing? Now you have people who, when you say, hey, you need to be chaste, guys need to stop doing this, they get attacked. And so, in addition to the demons driving this, now you have people whose lives are so disordered that what they see as good is bad, and what they see as bad is actually good. And so they see, and this is why we actually see Christ mention this. He says there will come a time when they will actually believe that by eradicating the people who follow him, they're actually doing the will of God.
I mean, it's interesting, I think all religions have been persecuted at one point or another through time.
Yeah.
If you talk bad about Islam, you're a bigot.
Right.
And that's the same with multiple religions. If you talk about Judaism, you'll be ostracized from everything.
That's right.
It is the ultimate no-no.
Right.
Correct? And I don't understand. I mean, why are Christians accepting this? In all the other religions, you see this righteous anger
That's right.
You know, if their religion or their people are disparaged.
Right.
With Christianity, and I'm guilty of it too. We let it.
Normally make a snack plate with these Bavarian meat sticks. These are absolutely delicious. They have 0 sugar and they taste amazing.
Free yourself from prying eyes. Ask privately with Duck.
We let it slide. Why is that?
I think we let it slide because
Are we conditioned?
yes, I think that's it. We're conditioned to actually believe that when Christ said turn the other cheek, that we just let people get away with whatever they want. And that's not actually the case. You basically, when he said you turn the other cheek, or you have to forgive even those who do the bad things they give you. Yeah, you have to forgive them, but that doesn't mean that you extend the effects of that forgiveness to them, because that might be bad for them. St. Thomas says. And so, for example, he says, you should have charity. You should have love of God and love of neighbor for the sake of God for everybody. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily show the effects of that love to somebody, because then it will confirm them in their sin, and it's actually going to be bad for them. And so what's happened is Christians have gone to excess and just thinking, we just have to let people walk all over us. And that's not what Christ was saying. In fact, we have an obligation to fight for and to protect the glory of Christ himself, Christ the King. We have an obligation to fight for him. And the fact that we actually don't do that is based upon this effeminate unwillingness to battle, because we think it's we're just being charitable, or we're trying to be Christian and be merciful. And look, sometimes being merciful to somebody is actually bad for them. And so God is going to be merciful when we meet those conditions, always. But in relationship to us as human beings, we can't extend the mercy to people if they're doing evil and harm and offending God.
I mean, do you think this is just going to continue to get worse?
I do.
What can people do? I mean, in all these other ideologies, we're forced to comply with LGBTQ,
Right.
Islam, Judaism, all of them. They're all accepted except Christianity.
I think there's two things. The first thing is that a lot of Christians don't know their faith well. And so a lot of times they get mocked up, and a lot of times they don't fight, or if they do fight, they fight badly because they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know how to disarm these people. I'm thinking of a particular bishop in his interview with Ben Shapiro. I'm like, man, that was a missed opportunity, because he really could have set the record straight on a few things. So in addition to, they have to know what they're talking about and have to know this stuff, they also have to know the other religions to know where they're wrong, and to be able to see this. And also these other ideologies, they have to know why these things are actually bad. But then the second part of it is they just have to man up. They just basically have to say, okay, look it, there's two things that I think that they have to do in relationship to that is they have to be willing to suffer other people's, chaffing at them and etc. It reminds me of the allegory of the cave in Plato, where the people in the cave see these projections and think that's reality, and that's not even reality. Reality's outside. So the guy tried to drag him outside, and they're chaffing with him the whole way they're dragging him outside. And even if they get outside and they see the truth, they want to go back to this, right? It's the same kind of a thing that you see here. They're going to chaff at you. So you just have to stay the course and be willing to tell the truth. The second thing is we have to be willing to wield the axe. And by that I mean we have to be willing to clear the deck. We have to start telling people, I'm offended by that. I don't care. I'm more concerned that you know the truth than your emotions are hurt. We have to stop allowing people to follow their emotions. We have to stop following our own emotions in relationship. We have to be willing to follow reason. Now, it doesn't mean you go around just being obnoxious, but it means that we have to be willing to fight with people. And if they just say, well, I'm offended, well, it's tough. That's just life. That's just reality. If you want to know the truth, you're willing to follow the truth. And the other side of it is the hypocrisy of it all. We have to recognize that when we give in to these people, we're giving into their hypocrisy. Because these people say, well, you're offensive to me. What you believe is offensive to me. Well, so is what you believe is offensive to me, and I think it's offensive to God. So we just have to say, okay, well, then what we have to do is we have to be willing to fight the truth, fight for the truth, be willing to take the beating for it in order to actually achieve in order to clear the deck. Now, there's one reason why I tell people they have to be willing to do this. Have you ever noticed that nobody will talk about something, nobody will say anything until one guy gets up there and says, this is a bunch of bunk, and here's why.
He makes it safe for everybody else.
Yes, he breaks the ice.
I know a couple guys like that.
Yeah. But it breaks the ice, and then from there, it becomes a legitimate topic of discussion, and people can actually start talking about it. But that's what we have to be willing to do. We have to be willing to break the ice or wield the axe in relationship to this, because it's once the truth gets out there, then it starts dispelling the darkness, and people start seeing it, and people that are normally of goodwill will start signing off to it and say, yeah, I actually believe that. So, I mean, we actually see this even, just recently, even just politically. You were never allowed to talk or mention Christianity or whatsoever, but now once it's started to talk about it, now a lot of people are talking about it. So it's that one guy's got to break the ice, and so people have to be willing to be that one guy. But
Hi. Now we're comfortable, let's talk urine leakage. 10 men maximum guards are designed for men.
I tell guys, you may or may not be that guy. You have to make sure, A, that you have the virtue to do it to sustain the beating, and you also have to be the guy that knows what he's talking about. And don't presume you know. You got to really know.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to find the truth and follow the truth, then you should be willing to defend the truth.
That's right.
Break the ice no matter what the consequences.
That's right. Personal cost. To go back to one of the points is, you have to be willing to be separated from the lesser good in order to pursue the greater good. Guys have to be willing to take the beating, to be separated from the comfort and the adulation of other people. They have to be willing to be separated from that in order to pursue the good, regardless of the personal cost, which is the greater good.
Can we communicate with angels?
Yes, we can.
How would we do that?
So, I think before I answer that, let me answer how actual angels communicate amongst themselves. So, basically the way it works is, because they don't have bodies, so we communicate because I think of something, I make a set of sounds, and then you hear the sounds, and then you interpret it based upon that. So it's a physical kind of communication. But because they don't have bodies, that means that their communication is purely intellectual. So it's a kind of a telepathy. And so the way that works is one angel thinks of the other angel and thinks to himself, I want to communicate with that particular angel. Now, if you remember what I was saying earlier, God infuses the particular things as they're happening in the minds of the angels as they're happening. And so the angel that's infused in the other angel's mind, that angel so-and-so wants to communicate with you. Then just like with us, we can either listen to somebody or not. If he uses his will to turn towards that angel in his mind, then all that angel has to do is then he can start communicating what he wants to directly with them. Okay. So that basically means that they can use their mind to communicate with them. That's not any different from the very nature of prayer. In fact, with the definition of prayer is lifting the mind and heart to God. So we're directing our mind to Him. And then when we do that, and then through our prayer, that we communicate with Him what we want, then when we do that, so obviously God knows all our thoughts anyway, but that's how we actually communicate with God, is just by directing our thoughts to Him directly and communicating Him with our thoughts. We can do it verbally as well.
Is verbally stronger than thought?
Yeah, it is in the sense that it's better for us, and so God tends to. It doesn't mean that God doesn't listen to the mental prayers, or even if you're talking to the angels.
I'm sorry, did you just say God does not listen to mental prayers?
No, He does.
He does.
He listens to them. But a lot of times, when we vocalize it, it helps our faculties become more focused, and it's a stronger prayer as a result. And so that's why a lot of times, there's also certain kinds of prayers He just wants done vocally anyway. So, and because He made us as human beings and made us with the ability to communicate in that fashion, He also wants us to do that from time to time. On the other hand, there's also certain kinds of prayer that you want to be entirely mental. Okay. With the angels, then what we do is it's the same kind of a mechanism that they have. It's just that they under certain circumstances, they are permitted to communicate directly to us so that we hear their thoughts, but that's extremely rare. But if we direct our thoughts to them, the same mechanism occurs. So if I direct my thoughts, say, to my guardian angel and to ask him to do something, in fact, I can tell a story behind that. If I tell my guardian, or if I mentally think of my guardian angel and tell him, hey, I want you to do X, Y, or Z, then it's the same mechanism it was with the angels. That's infused in his mind that I want to talk to him. And then when he turns his mind to me, he hears my thoughts. Otherwise, he can't get access to my thoughts. He can cause things in me, but he can't read them. He can't know what I'm thinking unless either he's causing it or he can kind of decipher it. And he's probably thinking about X, like you can with your wife. You know, you can figure out what she's thinking just by how she's reacting. But they can hear our thoughts in that actual process. So, to give an example, I had a case where the woman was possessed. I was in an airport. I was just about to get onto the plane. I was in line to at the gate, and the woman I was working with calls me, and who was possessed, and she calls me and she says, "Hey, I'm pinned and I can't move," and so which they had done to her before. And then she hands the phone to the assistants, because anytime I do a session, there's always lay assistants that are present. And they said, yeah, they took the phone. They said, yeah, we can't budge her, we can't move her. And I'm like, well, I'm standing, I'm literally handing the stewardess or whatever, the gate woman, my boarding pass. And I just said, well, I can't do it now, but my flight's only about an hour. I'll call you in about an hour. And so then I hung up. And then I just mentally said to the guardian angel of my priesthood,
Is your mattress giving you aches and pains? At Mattress Firm, our sleep experts can match you with a more supportive mattress.
go and help her. And then I just got onto the plane. An hour flight later, I get off the plane, and then I call her back and I said, "Are you still pinned?" She says, "Yes, I'm still pinned." So then I just said a couple of binding prayers. Boom, the demon let loose for right away, and then she just hangs up on me. And she says, "I gotta go." She hangs up. About 5 minutes later, she calls back and she says, "Well, the reason I hung up is because I hadn't been to the bathroom in 5 hours." I'm like, okay, that's fair enough. And then she said, "And by the way, did you send the guardian angel of your priesthood to me?" And I said, "Yeah, how did you know?" He said he appeared to me and held my hand during this whole episode. So the fact that I was able to mentally communicate that with my guardian angel is an indicator that they can hear our thoughts. And so we can ask them. The way our guardian angels work is their involvement in our life is based on two things. One, what God tells them to do. Hey, you need to do this, 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 or this, or I don't want you to protect them under this circumstance because I want them to go through this test, or I want them to suffer this for the sake of their soul, or whatever the case is. So God communicates that to them. But the primary way that they get involved in our lives is by our asking them. So the more we ask them, and the more we invoke their intercession and working in our lives, the more they become involved. And so sometimes people will say, well, my guardian angel doesn't do anything. I'm like, well, how much do you communicate with the guy? So if you communicate with him every single day, then you'll find that they'll be actually more involved in your life. Now, sometimes people will say, well, how do I know my guardian angel is even involved in my life? And it's very simple. Because they love God and they see his divine plan and relationship to us as human beings, they know that God's will is for us to live a normal life where we get to make free choices. That's what God wants for us. And that means that when our guardian angel is active, it means he's protecting us so that there's nothing trying to skew us or block us or do those things that would cause our bad choices, and so, or causing problems or difficulties in our lives. That's how you actually know. So in other words, it's the more natural our life seems, that's actually an indicator the more the angels are actually involved. Sometimes we'll get indication like, oh no, that was my guardian angel had to be protecting me in that particular set of situations. But that's not too common. But and the way we know that's how they work is that demons are the opposite. Everything they do is contrary to our nature. It tries to darken our intellect, make it harder for us to make good choices. They mess with everything in our lives. They try and mess everything up rather than just letting us live a normal life.
Aging is inevitable. And if you're anything like me, you feel it a little more every year. Sore knees, tight joints, recovery takes longer than it used to. We can't stop the clock, but we can take care of ourselves. That's why I take Bubs Naturals Collagen Peptides. I mix it into my tea every morning. It blends right in, no taste, no gritty texture. It's simple. I've been using Bubs collagen for a long time, and I genuinely notice the difference. My knees feel better, my skin looks better, I recover faster after workouts. I stick with Bubs because I trust the company. Their collagen is NSF certified for sport and sourced from grass-fed cattle. So it's clean, tested, and exactly what they say it is. And there's a bigger mission here. Bubs was founded in honor of Navy SEAL Glenn "Bub" Doherty. And 10% of all profits go towards helping veterans transition back to civilian life. So you're not just supporting your joints and recovery, you're supporting people who served this country. If you're ready to upgrade your daily routine with Bubs Naturals collagen, head to bubsnaturals.com/SRS and use code Sean for 20% off your order. Again, that's bubsnaturals.com/SRS and use code Sean for 20% off your order. Take care of your body. It's the only one you've got. Do you think most human beings can differentiate the difference between a communication from an angel and a demon?
No. And the reason I say that is, I think there's some things that are pretty overt, and sometimes people know, okay, yeah, I think that was my guardian angel. I mean, I think that there's some on the more kind of extreme kind of levels. But I think that most people's even understanding of what is good and bad and how the angels even communicate with us and how the demons are involved in our life, there's so much confusion out there and so little understanding of this thing that people actually believe that, oh, I have these amorous feelings for this person, it must be my guardian angel. No, demons can give you amorous feelings for people. So you have to be careful about that. Whereas the demons are never going to give you inclinations to want to love God more, to be more virtuous and things like that. So there are principles of discernment about how you can kind of sort these things out, but I don't think most people know them.
I had a
9 grams of protein per serving, 0 sugar, no artificial ingredients. They're so filling.
It's a heart-stopping moment as a woman starts choking in her kitchen.
Are you choking? Are you choking?
Her
I think I had a encounter with an angel several years ago that I think that's what honestly led me to Christ.
Yeah.
And it is the only other time in my life where I really felt that there was a true battle for my soul happening in real time.
Right.
And it was at a very dark part of my life.
Yeah.
And I basically come to I had this intuitive feeling in my heart that I was transgenderism was really bothering me at the time,
Right.
and a lot of other things that were going on in the world, and I felt like maybe I was one of the only people speaking out about it, and it was just running rampant through the country. And so I had this internal battle in my head happening, and basically it was me convincing myself that maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I feel like I'm the only one speaking out against it. I feel like maybe I should just surrender. What's the point? Why fight this? Why speak out against it? Why do any of that? Because everybody appears to be for the celebrities that I respected, started speaking out for it. People I never would have expected speaking out about drag shows in front of toddlers, and all these things. And these are people that I never would have expected to do this. And then 1 week later, after they announce that they're all for this, they get a massive TV show deal.
Right.
And so I think I know what that is. But at the time, I didn't see that deal. And so I felt like I was surrendering my soul to evil. And I was just like, why even? Who cares? Just give up. And I'd gotten to that point where I was almost there. We had walked into this, my wife and I had walked into this place we were vacationing in Sedona, Arizona. And we walked through the gate guards. There was armed guards there that were arming the property, or guarding the property. And I've been there for a week, I'd seen all these guys, a lot of them watch the show, they'd say hi, and this was the last night I was there, and I walked through the gate, and there's this older gentleman in there. I think he said he was an Air Force Vietnam vet or something. And he started trying to talk to me. I didn't want to talk to him. I was, like I just told you, I was in a pretty dark place. And my wife stopped to talk to him. I'd never seen this guy. Been there for a week. I know I pay attention to security because of my background. Had never seen this guy at all, ever. And so I'm kind of posturing like I don't want to talk to him, looking at him over my shoulder.
Right now.
My wife stops. I turn and I square up to him. He immediately read my mind from front to back. And he said, I only really remember the first thing that he said because it scared me that he was inside my head. And he said, you don't need to worry about all this transgenderism going on with the kids and just humans in general. That's not your battle. And then he went on and he started talking about, he said something about China, because China was really in my head, because that was when the spy balloons traversed the United States.
Right.
From Washington to Florida or South Carolina, wherever. And he started going into that. And I just looked at this guy in the eyes and I was like,
yeah,
how are you inside of my head? And then a whole series of other events happened within minutes right after that. And that's basically what saved my soul and brought me to Christ.
Right.
And so what I want to ask you, is there a possibility that was my guardian angel or maybe an archangel?
Yes, it can be, actually. Usually when you see those kinds of experiences which are not normally explained, one of the other things that you'll notice is you'll never be able to find that guy again.
Nope.
Yep, yeah. So that's that's actually one of the indicators. It's a very similar story to a priest who, the first pastor I was under, he had to go to anoint somebody in a building, and when he got there, this 6-foot, big, burly police officer was there and said, you can't go in there, Father. And he just says, well, I have to. I've got to anoint. He says, no, you can't go in. Leave. And so the priest walks around the corner and then says, no, I got to go do it. So he turns back around. That police officer was nowhere to be found. He asked the police department. They'd never had any of that guy on there. But while he had walked around the corner and came back, 2 people were shot in the building. So that it's the same kind of a thing. They sometimes intervene in such dramatic ways in order to correct our path so that we don't end up going down the wrong path.
Why don't they do this more often? Why didn't they do this to the celebrity that I'm talking about?
Well, part of it has to do with...
Or maybe they did.
And maybe they did, yeah. I think some of it is also, it's how much involvement do we want to get them in our lives? I mean, do they, if the guardian angels appear to, would they even listen to him? So it's largely a matter of, as I mentioned, there's certain things that God tells them the guardian angels what they need to do, but God's will for us is for us to get them involved in our lives.
Now this is the road trip.
Keep going. Keep earning points with Wyndham Rewards.
It's just like our new house. I hope to have an American Home Shield warranty. Leaky.
You know, I've also heard that if you're in the presence of an angel, it's terrifying would be the wrong word, but it is just an overpowering sensation that no human being could fathom. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, there might be certain experiences of people historically that would account for those kinds of things. But generally speaking, angels aren't that overt, and they tend to be much more subtle, and they're in our presence. I mean, your guardian angel is watching you all the time and to keep watch over you, and from time to time putting those thoughts in your mind and that type of thing to help guide you and that type of thing. So they have a lot of presence to us that's not going to be that dramatic.
Do you have any other examples of human beings encountering angels? I mean, we hear miraculous things with car wrecks. The car's been lifted off a body or and saved them, or
Yeah, I mean, I've heard those kinds of stories too. Another story that a priest friend of mine had a parishioner who, she was very elderly, and so there was there was a woman who was like 17 who would take her to mass every day, but the 17-year-old didn't have her driver's license, and the 80-year-old woman did. But she was very elderly, so they went to mass, and when they came back out, the elderly woman says, I just can't hardly move my arms. We're going to have to pray to St. Raphael to come and to drive the car for us. So the older woman literally said a prayer to St. Raphael. The next thing you know, the car starts up, turns, and then goes all the way to their house, shuts off. There was, I'll admit that when I was younger, I was not the best kind of an individual. So one time I got pretty schnockered. Right, so
I can see that.
Yeah. So this was long before I got my act together, but I got pretty schnockered, and I was at this friend of mine's house, which lived about 20 miles from where my parents lived. And I mean, I was on the verge of blacking out. Got in my truck, started driving home. Then I mean, all I remember is getting in the truck and telling him, no, I'm going to be all right. I start driving away. The next thing I remember is pulling into my house, my parents' house. I'm convinced that was my guardian angel, because there's no way. I mean, I literally blacked out for that whole distance.
Wow.
Yeah. So they do, I mean, it tells you, that, those of us who are trying to be good have had bad past sometimes too, but you just have to make sure that you're trying to do everything you can to get the angels, your guardian angels especially, but all the angels too, involved in your life. And they're not just our own personal guardian angels. There's guardian angels of families, towns, countries, churches, those types of things. And so corporations of a certain size, there's just, God created a number of angels, and so you can also pray to the guardian angels of your children. Hey, making sure that Johnny, who Johnny is to do this, that, and everything, and that empowers them to actually be able to go and do that more frequently.
I mean, I have another example that just popped in my head. I mean, several years ago, over a decade ago, I had a suicide attempt, and same thing. I was hammered, blacked out. Yeah, don't remember how I got home. And I don't remember doing this, I reclined my seat in my garage with the car running.
Yeah.
When I woke up in the morning, I woke up in my room, I lived in a townhome, and my entire townhome smelled like gasoline, or some type of fuel. Woke up, ran downstairs, saw my pistol on the couch, a pistol that I don't carry every day. So I think maybe there was 2 attempts, or I was thinking about doing it twice.
Right.
Because I would have never accessed that pistol. Especially at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when I've just tied on.
Right.
I go out to my garage, and the door handle was like a little bit, like the door was a little hot to the touch, and I thought, holy shit, there's a fire in there or something. And I opened the door, but before I opened the door, I made the decision that if I open the door, I'm probably going to get blown to smithereens, because all the fresh oxygen's going to rush in.
Oh, yeah.
Blow me away. So I made that 3 times. I think I made the decision to die, to kill myself. I went in the garage and I saw my Audi with the seat reclined back.
Raising Cane's is celebrating National Chicken Finger Day.
I feel that connection. This area, these canyons my grandpa walked.
And the car was still running, and it was so hot in there that the gas tank melted, and the gas tank was leaking. It was a slow drip, but it was dripping fire out of the gas tank onto the exhaust muffler.
Whoa. Yeah.
I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. Do you think that was a guardian angel? Was that God that intervened?
Yeah, a lot of times they'll actually do that. So, yeah, they'll do it. Speaking of cars, I had an experience once while I was driving. I was driving my truck to go out to the seminary to teach a course, and there was a car here and one here, and then I was behind it, and an ambulance comes on the other side, so this car right in the front just locks up the brakes and stops right in the middle. It's like a 40-mile-an-hour zone, just stops right in the middle. So the guy in front of him manages to stop before it's getting. But by the time I hit the brakes, I'm looking at the back of this guy's thing, like, I am just going to plow into the back of this guy's truck, right? And so, and I had my hands on there. It was not me. Literally, all of a sudden, the wheel just goes, whoom. I go right between these posts, go right between the posts, and then the wheel just goes, it goes right between the posts, back down, around those two, and right back up onto the road, and I'm driving. I'm like, yeah, okay, I need hazardous duty pay. But the point being is that I think that was my guardian angel.
I mean, even in war examples, I mean, I've stepped on unexploded HE, high explosive ordnance in Afghanistan that stepped on it. Yeah. I took a picture of it because I was like, holy shit, I should be dead.
Yeah.
I just stepped on UXO HEDP round. Yeah. And it didn't blow.
Right.
And there's example, my friend Eddie Penny. I mean, he had a intuitive thought injected into his brain on a target in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Something told him, I can't remember the exact story, but something told him, don't go over there. 2 seconds later, the entire building is leveled.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, that's part of the fact that they can put that kind of stuff into our imaginations. A lot of times we can talk about the fact that they actually can protect us spiritually, or protect us physically from these particular things that happen to us. They can also protect us spiritually by putting in our minds, you really probably should avoid that particular person. I'm not suggesting that people should just be, following their emotions and things like that, but the angels can actually protect us spiritually, even sometimes from ourselves, protect us from the wrong kinds of people. The other thing that I find fascinating about the angels, which is something which I actually use from time to time, is this is based upon the inversion of it. So I'll tell the inversion of it and then talk about why we know that angels do it. So demons can actually do this same mechanism, which is because they can affect our imagination. The demons can actually block people by affecting their imagination from focusing on things that you would normally think that they would focus on. This is how, like in our government, you can have people who are engaging in bad behavior for decades, or even years, but just for decades, and nobody even pays hardly any attention to it. Like, why didn't anybody notice that? And that's because the demons can actually affect that. They said Hitler, he had this phenomenal ability to, at the very last second, shift and change his schedule and just say, okay, I'm not going to, we're going to go over here. All of a sudden, boom, they would change it. There was actually a president here in the United States in recent past that had the same phenomenon, that he would just all of a sudden change his schedule out of the blue. And then they would find out there was an attempt on his life that was going to occur.
Wow.
So the demons can actually influence people that way too, but they can also block our ability to focus on stuff that, why hasn't anybody talked about this particular kind of fraud in the government when it's this rampant, that type of thing. And so they can actually do that. Well, the same kind of mechanism, so they can keep people hidden. And so the same kind of mechanism the actual angels can do. So one of the things I often recommend to people who are really trying to forge the good and do a lot of good in the culture and that type of thing is ask either Our Lady to send her angels down, but ask your guardian angel or the angels to keep you hidden from the wrong kinds of people, and it has a phenomenally good effect So what will happen is and it's even a mechanism I teach. Sometimes I'll teach people who run major corporations. And they'll complain to me like, we just keep getting the wrong kinds of people in, you know, they keep coming in and they cause all this damage. I said, well, ask the angels to keep your corporation hidden from them. But at the same time, ask them to keep it known to the people that need to know. So they can actually affect other people to where they don't, you know, decide, you know, I'm going to go work for Sean, and then they come in and cause you all this damage. You can actually keep those kinds of people out, away. Or the types of people that, you know, that could cause you harm or whatever the case is. Just ask Our Lady to keep me hidden from them. I do it in relationship to certain people, just to keep me hidden so that I don't have this. And it's been, Our Lady's been very good to that, but the angels are the ones that kind of execute that process.
The first thing I want to put on this plate is protein. It has 9 grams of protein and 0 sugar, which is so exciting.
With summer travel, even learning a few real phrases can completely change the experience. You're not just pointing at a menu or hoping someone speaks English. You can order food, ask for directions, and actually connect with people a little more when you're there. That's why...
Do we have any idea of what their realm looks like? I mean, they seem, the majority, I mean, almost all the time invisible to us. I mean, yeah. You know, so... Do we have any idea of what their realm, what their perspective of this realm looks like, and how do they transfer realms? Are they in another dimension that coincides with this dimension? I mean, if you're driving down the road and
it's all here.
Your car goes off and an invisible thing throws your car back on the road. I mean, are they
well, a dimension
transferring from one dimension to the other in a split second? I mean, what is it?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Like, they're not in another dimension because a dimension is a physical thing, and they're not physical. They don't have bodies. They can actually move physical things just with their minds. You know, so it's a form of telekinesis type of thing, but they can have it. And so, in fact, it's actually, there's a lot of theological speculation by certain theologians throughout history that originally Adam and Eve had the power of telekinesis, and then God restricted it to our bodies. Because when we make a choice, I can make a choice to think about something different, and that means that I'm using my will, which is an immaterial thing, to move my body, right? So we do have some ability to do that, and they also think that the saints have that capacity as well to do that, God permitting. Okay, so all that being said, but basically what it means is that because they don't have any bodies, but in their minds, they see all the stuff that's actually going on. Now, their experience of seeing, see, for us, physical things have a much stronger impression on us because that's the way God just kind of designed us. Whereas with the angels, when they think of a concept, it's far more intense of an experience than we get even of a physical thing. And so they see those things with great clarity, and then their wills, they can actually move. Then if they want to affect us in some way and God permits it, just by their wills, they can actually move it. It's like a form of telekinesis, but they can just move it, God permitting, so they can apply their will to actually move those particular things.
Can they see our demons?
Yes, they see everything that is going on in the spiritual world.
Can the demons see them?
Yes, they can.
Do they communicate?
Not usually, although once in a while they will, and it's usually a one-way form of communication, where the angels are telling the demons to knock it off, or you can't do this, you can't do that. Because even if the other angels, the lower angels know there's no point in trying to communicate with them because they're not going to listen because they're following the will of God. The only time that seems to be different is in cases that protract of possession. There's 6 stages of liberation. In stage 6 is actual liberation. Stage 5 is called the ascendancy phase, and there's a part of that phase. It's in 4 parts, and there's a part of that phase called the saints phase. And basically, there's the saints phase, so that sometimes the saints will actually show up. I don't see them, but the person who's possessed sees the saints, etc. But then there's another part called the bargaining phase. And basically, that's just before the saints phase. And the bargaining phase is the demons know they're losing. They've lost. And so from time to time, the person who's possessed will actually see the interchange. And so it's very similar to the kind of like the interchange that Pope Leo saw of Satan approaching God and asking him, "Give me 100 years," right? So it's a bargaining kind of a thing. So the demon will actually approach Christ because they know he's the guy that's got all the power. He said it, all power on heaven and earth is given to me. So they know he's the guy. They can't do anything without asking. So that they'll actually go to him and ask, give me this power, give me this permission to do X, Y, and Z. And he most always says no, but the person who's possessed will see that interchange. So that's about the only time that I've recognized that they'll communicate with, either the saints or Christ or whatever the case is. That's when that communication goes that direction. But otherwise, it's just a one-way communication.
Okay. I've never really realized the power of prayer until the last couple weeks when I did another episode on this, but we've been talking about it all week, my last psychedelic experience, and I said some of your deliverance prayers and had intuitive experiences of demons leaving my body. And some of the things we experienced yesterday here were extremely profound. What is the power of the rosary?
The Lumify effect. One drop dramatically reduces redness for brighter, whiter-looking eyes that make you go, wow. Lumify works in 1 minute and lasts up to 8 hours. See what all the hype is about with the one and only Lumify.
Well, historically, St. Padre Pio used to refer to it as the weapon, especially in spiritual warfare. But it was basically, the rosary was a sacramental that was given to a particular saint in order so that that those who would pray the rosary, that specific structure of prayer that God wanted people to start saying was given by Our Lady to a particular saint, was given to them as a way of, if you continually say this, then it's going to bring about the intention for which you're going to say the rosary. For example, the Battle of Lepanto. So the Turks are there. They're basically the Christians, the Catholics are outnumbered significantly in Lepanto, and so at a certain point, Pius V orders that all the Christians start praying the rosary for the intention of the Christians to conquer the Turks. And you have to remember, it was like 10 or 20 to 1, kind of outnumber kind of a situation. So they literally, a large part of Christendom, and even the people, the soldiers at Lepanto started saying the rosary, asking Our Lady to invoking her, intercession to conquer the Turks. They just destroyed the Turks in the process. So the point being is that the rosary is one of those particular things that a number of the saints have said. For example, if there's a particular vice you're trying to overcome in your life, start saying the rosary every day for that intention, and pretty quick it'll go away. And so it's one of those sacramentals that was given to the church, which has a pretty profound impact.
So when you say the rosary, should there always be an intention behind it, or
you want to offer it up for some intention. Like for example, given your state in life, you could offer it up for the spiritual well-being of your wife, your children, or whatever, for your protection, or if there's particular problems you're dealing with in your corporation or whatever the case is, you can pray for Our Lady to start ameliorating those, or to for the rosary for that intention.
What are some other tools, prayers, tools that people can use for spiritual warfare? I mean, we talked about at the beginning of this. We had brought up the UFO disclosure alien narrative and the possibility that the U.S. government is trying to disprove and the Bible and steal faith from people and destroy Christianity. What are, and we talked a lot about the battle in your mind and for your soul. I mean, what are things that people can do outside of voting.
Voting, yeah. As some friends of mine always say, which we've kind of seen even in this last election and when the election's going forward, is, because, I mean, I think people should vote, but this idea that you're going to solve the problem by voting, so their phrase is, we just have to vote harder, right? Well, that's just not going to ultimately change, because this is a spiritual battle. The main thing for people to remember, at least in relation, so there's different categories of things that people can actually make use of, but the primary thing is prayer. And Christ actually laid out, he said it in such a way so that to explicate a very specific kind of principle or a mechanics of how the spiritual life actually works. So he says, knock and it will be open. So there's two things. You have to do something if you want the door open. He's not normally just going to, I mean, once in a while he might open the door, but eventually you've got to open up, you've got to do your part for the door to actually open. And so the first is knock and the door will be opened, ask and you shall receive. So there's two. One, you got to do something, but the second thing is what you ask for is what you're going to get. So that principle, the mechanics of God is sitting there listening all the time to everything that you're doing, everything, because he sees it. And so he's listening. And I've actually had that experience even in session where mentally I just said to God the Father, punish this demon in a way that you've never punished someone before. And he just, boom, it's just this immediate. So you know that he's sitting there listening. But what you ask for is what you're going to get. And the principle is that prayer begets what it signifies. That's part of the spiritual mechanics. That means in the spiritual warfare, what you ask for is what you're going to get. And so an example in relationship to the UFO situation, there's a book called The Alien Delusion by Gates. And in that book, it's a bit dated, but there's some key things in there which still even apply even today. And there's actually, you can go online and actually research this, and there's historical situations where people have been being abducted by aliens, and then they'll cry out Jesus' name. Jesus, help me. That's the prayer that he's crying out. And then all of a sudden, boom, the aliens completely disappear, right? And so that's an indicator that what they prayed for, they got. Christ helped them. It's the same thing in the spiritual warfare. So if you ask your guardian angel, hey, if you, communicate with him and say, hey, look, I need you to protect me, protect my children, that's what he's going to do. If you ask Christ, or also even Our Lady, but if you ask Christ, hey, protect my children or protect me, or there's this particular problem, which I think is a spiritual issue, can you bind any of the demons that are involved in that? Then, can you please just bind them from being able to do anything in relationship to that? So I actually put out a book called Deliverance Prayers for the Lady, which...
Is that my AC breaking? An American Home Shield warranty can help protect major home systems.
People shouldn't feel restricted to that book, because a lot of times just asking Christ directly, hey, this is what I need, that's what he's waiting for, and then he'll give it to you. So, and then that's true about spiritual warfare. It's also true about just advancing in your own spiritual life and trying to become holier. But the book, Deliverance Prayers for the Lady, has some examples of, hey, this is how binding prayers work. This is how, if you consecrate things to Our Lady or to our Lord, then as a result of that, they'll start protecting them and things of that sort. So that kind of gives an example of the things that they can actually do. The main thing that people have to do, though, is they have to understand how evil works. And when they see the evil in their life, they have to go and ask Christ for the specific things. So, for example, if you have a child who's like, oh, I think I'm gay, or I think I'm this, you have to start asking Christ, give him the grace to see that that's not what the situation is, or give him the grace to, not want to be transgender or whatever the case, but also Christ block any demons that could be causing those kinds of thoughts in this kid's mind. If they start asking for the very specific things, that's when they're going to see the most effect, because what you ask for is what you're going to get.
So do we talk to our angels, or do we communicate? Do we talk to them, or
yeah,
do
you
we
can talk
pray
to them because they can when they see it in their mind when we're talking verbally, but they can also, if we direct our thoughts to them, they can hear our thoughts.
So we can pray to Christ, God, the Holy Spirit, Virgin Mary. We talk to angels.
Yeah.
How do we differentiate who we pray to? Why wouldn't we just always pray to God if he is the highest?
Well, it kind of has to do with this. Let me ask you this question. let's say for the sake of argument, there was somebody who you didn't even know was outside your corporation, but they really wanted for you to do a particular thing for them. Would you be more likely to listen or grant it if they just came up to you and said, hey, Sean, would you do X? Or would they do it if your favorite employee or some of the guy that, or one of your, like your wife, they went to your wife and your wife says, I think that's good. I'll ask Sean and see what he thinks. When are you more likely to give it?
Direct.
Well, okay, that's because you are what? You're manly about the situation. Okay. But most people would do what? They're not telling them no. But if your wife asks, you're like, now the reason that you wouldn't do it is because the reason you like to direct is because you don't want people being obsequious going around and trying to do that type of thing. But with God, the way it kind of works is that, yeah, he'll listen to us. So the direct stuff does work. And so I'm not telling people they shouldn't do that. But on the other hand, he set up certain saints and even our angels. He sent them up so that he wants us to go to them because then they can go to him and ask him. And because he likes them more, he's more likely to give it. And that's how basic intercession works. By the way, a lot of Protestants will say, well, the saints can't pray for us, and that's such a... We believe, even the Protestants believe in intercessory prayer. It's just that who can do it is the question. Because they pray for other people too. So they're interceding for other people. And so the question is can the saints do it? Well, there's nothing in Scripture that says that they can't.
Let's talk a little bit more about the spiritual battle. Is the battle happening right now between angels and demons? Or is this something that's coming?
So they don't fight each other well, they do kind of fight each other directly, but it's, so that after their fall, there was a short kind of period of time in which they were still in the presence of each other. The ones who had fallen and the ones who were faithful, and the ones who had the beatific vision, the ones who were damned were in this presence of each other. At a certain point, St. Michael, who's the guardian angel of the elect, that's his assigned task. He's the guardian angel of the elect. God gave him the power and told him separate them and so that they can't be engaging in this battle with each other anymore. And so we know about that separation because it's right in Scripture, where Lazarus, the guy that's damned, says, "Hey, can you send Lazarus down to tell my brothers?" Or and he says, "Well, first of all, we can't cross the abyss, right? There's this separation, and the only time it's ever allowed to cross that is God has to allow it." Okay, so we know that that's actually happened. So there's this actual abyss. That means that in the spiritual warfare, the angels and the saints aren't necessarily battling each other. And the reason being is because there's this thing called prelation. Prelation is the ability of one thing who's higher, a prelate, is able to command a lower one to do something. All of the angels in heaven and all the saints in heaven have prelation in relationship to the demons. So all they have to do is command them, leave, and boom, it has an immediate effect. So they don't sit there and battle back and forth. It has this immediate effect. That means that the battle now is primarily in us, in this world, in our minds, primarily in our bodies, that's where the primary field of the battle is that's actually occurring, the primary theater, as they would say. And so basically what it is that...
on the count of 3, okay? 1, 2...
Ding dong, it's Realtor.com time. We can't find a ranch style with a view. And a money mostly.
Then that means that there's two components to the spiritual warfare. One, we have to get our guardian angels and the saints and God and more involved in our lives so that they drive them out. So there's that. But then also we can combat them to leave as well. And so we can actually command the demons, because Christ gave us the example, Satan, get behind me, right? So we can tell the demons, get away from me. And because we have rights over our body, they have to respect the natural law in relationship to us. And so if we're persistent, they'll leave.
Do angels kill? I read somewhere that a single angel killed 180,000 in one day.
Yes, in the sense of there has been some that my understanding is that's the part of the mechanism in the Old Testament. They can, but they only do it when God tells them to do it. And it's the same kind of a thing in which you saw in the Old Testament God telling the Jews in the Old Testament, hey, you got to wipe out this whole group of people. And the reason being is because even the children, and to us that's just pretty jarring, but the part of the reason for that is because you have to wipe out the adults because they're doing the evil and they're going to cause evil and you're going to get sucked into the evil. The problem is that the demons that are afflicting the parents are also start affecting the kids that get attached to the kids, and so even if you let the kids leave, you're going to have a problem with it later. And so that's why it was done in the Old Testament. And I'm not suggesting that we do that as a form of warfare today. It's a different kind of a dynamic, but that's actually why. But so in the past, the angels could kill entire segments of population, God permitting.
You brought up Michael several times. What about Gabriel?
So Gabriel's assigned function was to announce the coming of Christ, to actually the incarnation. So that was his one assigned task, and so that's why he actually appears to Our Lady to announce this is what so that's what he was actually created for. Outside that context, so not each angel, but a lot of the angels have a primary assigned task for which they were given, and then they have a secondary task that's usually connected to that. And so the other thing that Gabriel actually can do too is to encourage us and to get us to be more devoted to Christ.
What about Raphael?
So in the Old Testament, of course, he's the one that heals. So you can invoke him for like people who might have cancer or whatever the case is, ask for him to actually heal you.
Are there any other significant?
Well, one other thing in relationship to Raphael, so also Raphael sequestered, he's one of the nemeses of Asmodeus, who's the demon of homosexuality in men. He's also a demon of impurity. But in the Old Testament, he sequesters him in the deserts. And so you can ask Saint Raphael if you're dealing with that particular demon, but you can ask Saint Raphael to be the one to help you in that regard.
What does the final battle look like?
It basically, okay, so the structure of it is, the human beings' morals will implode so badly and there'll be wars and rumors of wars and all this other stuff to such a degree that at that point the Antichrist shows up and presents himself as the solution to human beings' problems. And he gains significant control over the human population. But there's a part of it that he actually doesn't. When he shows up on the scene, then there's kind of stages that actually start to happen. There's still battling that's kind of going on a spiritual level. But then Enoch and Elijah show up. They're put to death by the Antichrist. Then at a certain point, St. Michael shows up, but he doesn't actually, he battles with the Antichrist, but he doesn't actually put the Antichrist to death. And in the end, Christ is the one who shows up and puts the Antichrist to death.
Will Gabriel come back to announce the second coming?
Not directly, is my understanding.
And when it's over, when we go to heaven or hell,
right?
Are there levels to each?
There is.
What do those look like?
So in hell, the level that you have in hell, which is inverted of what is it in heaven, the lower you are in hell, which basically means the more is based upon how depraved you are, how evil you actually are. But that evil then also gives you more power in relationship to the other people in hell. So that's why even Satanists are doing a lot of evil things in order to raise their place in hell. And technically speaking, they're lowering it. But there is based upon how evil, whereas in heaven, it's how good you are, which basically means the more approximate or the more you like God, the better you actually are as a human being, as a person, as an angel, the more holy you are, then that means that you'll have that place up in heaven. So there's different levels in heaven.
What are the levels?
Well, the levels are actually based upon primarily the sanctifying grace that's in your soul. St. Paul refers to, in his letters, he refers to the fact that sanctifying grace is basically God indwelling in us, in our souls. It's a qualitative change. So how much we have him indwelling in us determines where we're at in heaven. Now, some of that is broken down into the 9 choirs of angels, so we're kind of in that. But there's also like different parts of heaven, so that they call them parts. But it basically just means that there's certain people that will enjoy certain things more than others based upon the kinds of virtues that they achieved in this life or the good actions that they did in this life. They'll just find certain things more enjoyable in heaven. All of us will have the beatific vision, that is to see God face to face. And basically what that is...
Amazing.
This is Samsung Micro RGB color. Microscopic lights create colors never before possible. And I look magnificent, baby. Magnificent. This dude gets it.
The Samsung Micro RGB TV. See it for yourself at Best Buy.
You want to perform to the max, you gotta hydrate to the max.
When you actually look at how the saints talk about the structure of this beatific vision, St. Paul talks about, I will see him face to face, and I will know myself as I am known. So you actually see God inside God's mind. You actually see him. And so the way that works is, in order for that to happen, there can't be any medium between us and him. And so what he does is, he infuses in our minds this, for us, because we can't see him right now, even though he's here. So what God does is he infuses us another, what they call the light of glory. He infuses in us, he strengthens our mind so that all of a sudden everything can just peel back and we're able to see spiritual realities in what they actually are. And then, but that lumen gloria basically means that he infuses that in our mind, and at the same time, he presses his very nature on our minds. So we see him literally face to face, we see him. That means that once you see him, you can see everything he causes, everything that he's done, all the glory in his work, in the created order, all that, you're able to see it. We can't comprehend it all at once, but we can kind of look at it from different features. And so that's what heaven is like. It's like spending all our time looking at this from a variety of different points of view. The holier you are, the more illumined glory you get, and that means the more you understand God and the better you see his glory and his goodness, and as a result of that, the happier you actually are. So how happy you are is how holy you are and how good of a life that you led in this life.
So if we both die today and go to heaven, and we're at different levels, will we be able to interact?
Yeah, we'll have, all those people in heaven have perfectly interaction. And so let's just say you get a higher place in heaven than
So
me.
it's a state of mind. A level of heaven is a state of mind. Kind of.
Kind of. Yeah, it's a state in the
It's not
sense
a different location.
Exactly. So it just means that, like say you're higher in heaven, it just means you understand more and you have a higher degree of happiness than I have. I'm still perfectly happy, but there can be degrees of perfection. And so the people in heaven have, and there's no envy. When I see you enjoying the beatific vision, just to say for the sake of argument, that you have a higher, I'll actually see how good that is and how God, and I'll take delight in seeing the fact that you have a higher place than I have. So there's no envy, there's no nothing.
Do you think we will interact with relatives here on Earth after we pass?
Yes, we actually do. I mean, it depends. Like, so if our relatives actually make it to heaven, then there is some interaction. I'll give you a couple of examples that I've had just recently. My father died about 3 years ago. In fact, next week, 3 years next week. And I had a very strong, good relationship with my father. And in fact, he's the guy that just taught me, hey, look, real men don't do this or that, type of thing. But anyway, so when he passed, because I worked as a mechanic with him, twice I've come across a mechanical thing that I couldn't solve. So I literally just said, hey, Dad, how do I solve this problem? Instantaneously. All of a sudden, boom, I get this clarity and see, all you have to do is put the wrench on this direction. Literally, like, even though I had been working trying to sort this thing out for 45 minutes, boom, the thing came right off. I've had 2 experiences of that with my father. So I think there is an actual interaction. There's also numerous people who talk about, like I know one exorcist whose mother was a very holy woman. And during his sessions, he'll actually call his mother down and say, come down and be present to this. And the person who's possessed can see the mother. So we do have interaction with them. It's just it's a one-way kind of a communication. We can communicate with them. They can do certain things with us. There are very, very rare circumstances where they appear to people, but I've never seen an authentic case in my life. I've just read about them.
Do we see our direct lineage when we die?
Yeah.
Isn't everybody our lineage, though, if we all came from Adam and Eve?
That's right. We'll know it all. We'll see it.
We'll see what?
We'll actually see the entire lineage, both up and down the actual line.
Did Christ have a guardian angel?
So that is a question which St. Thomas Aquinas asks, and then after him, that was pretty much the general belief of the theologians and saints throughout after that. And basically, we have a guardian angel because we're in the process of trying to save our souls and get to heaven, right? And so they guard us so that we can actually get there. So that state, the process of getting there, historically the saints from the patristics on called that the wayfarer state. We're wayfarers. We're on the way to getting there. So the difference, though, is that Christ, even though he was alive in this life, he had the beatific vision from the time of his conception, according to the entire tradition of the church. And that's one of the reasons why we know that he had this, because of the fact that he would, he would actually talk about I and the Father are one, so you could actually see it. But he would also say things like, you would see in Scripture, Christ knew their thoughts, because he could see it. His human mind could see it in his divine nature. He could see because God was possible. So he could actually see those things. So that's one of the. So we know that he had the actual beatific vision.
Start building skills for today's tech jobs. Learn more at wgu.edu.
An American home shield warranty can protect appliances like your fridge, no matter how old.
This isn't about appliances.
You just.
That means that he's not a wayfarer. His human nature was already in union with God, which is the final goal. And so he wasn't on the way, he was already at the end. And so St. Thomas says he didn't actually have a guardian angel. It didn't mean that there weren't guardian angels who assisted him at times. It didn't also mean that he wouldn't necessarily, in his divine nature, command certain angels to kind of keep certain things at bay so that he could do certain things. So, for example, you would read in the scriptures how the Jews would try and lay hold of him, and he would just walk right through them, right? And so the angels can kind of block them from being able to do that. So the Jews from seizing him. So there was, he actually mentions this to Nicodemus. He says, you're going to see the angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man, because all of the angels in heaven knew who Christ was, and they knew that he, also being God, was to whom they must serve. And that's also when he said, all power in heaven and earth will be given to me. So even the angels in heaven obey him and submit to him, so they serve him. And so we know that so he didn't have a guardian angel, but they all served him.
Last question. What is divine mercy?
So mercy is defined as loosening the bonds of justice for the good of the individual. So in other words, somebody's done something bad. Now, justice normally being served would indicate that the person should have to suffer a proportion of evil in relationship to it. It's called the lex talionis, or the law of the talons, which is, which is actually in the Old Testament. So, an eye for an eye, or tooth for a tooth. So the punishment has to fit the crime, and it has to be proportionate. Okay. But a lot of times, that's not good for people. Right? And especially with us as human beings, when we're stupid and we realize, oh man, I did something really bad. If we suffered the effects of all of our sins all the time, we would just be brutalized from the process. So what God does is he loosens the bonds of justice. In other words, he doesn't apply the full punishment of the law, because it's better for our spiritual well-being in the process. And so his mercy, he grants it to us because it's a manifestation of his goodness. St. Augustine says it's the greatest manifestation how good God is, that he actually doesn't punish us, that he actually doesn't extend the full extent of the punishment to us for that. Now, mercy is, we get mercy for two reasons, and this we know from the Old Testament, we also know it from the New Testament. That mercy is for the stupid, you know, man, you're dumb, okay, and so I'm going to cut you some slack, right? But he doesn't do it all the time. Once in a while, he'll let us kind of suffer our stupidity so we clue in, okay? But then the other one is when we're sorry for it. And the reason his mercy, he gives it to us because we're contrite, we're sorry for what we've done, is because of the fact that the sorrow, when we look at the evil that we've done, we sorrow in that evil. Whereas when we committed the sin, we were focusing on the good we were getting out of it, and that was disorder. So when he sees that order within the soul that, look, I've done this, I've done a bad thing, and that you're sorry to him because you've offended him, when he sees that sorrow, then he realizes that's the order that I was looking for, that the soul is rightly ordered, and as a result that he communicates to them his mercy. And that means he loosens the bonds of justice and they're not bound by it. And so God's mercy is for the stupid and the contrite. And so divine mercy is specifically, God's mercy is, which he said in the Old Testament, look, if you're sorry, or in the New Testament, if you're sorry for your sins, this is what I'm going to give you. So there's a certain sense in which it's also his mercy, is his justice, because he is going to be absolutely true to his word, which is just, that if you meet these requirements, I will loosen the bonds of justice, which is his mercy. But if you're not, then I'm not going to. So there's a justice element of it. But the point being is that his mercy is something which is he desires for us to be under his mercy, which basically means he desires that right over the soul for us to be sorry for the sins that we've committed. And then he basically, then at that point, he'll forgive us our sins. And then he'll also confer to us good things because of the fact that we're sorry. What's interesting is, because God's outside of time, and he sees the totality of time all the time and all at once. So he sees what you've done in the past, and he sees what you're doing now. That means that even though he has loosened the bonds of justice with you in the order of time, for all eternity, that is, for him is eternal now, he will see the offense that you committed. This is why Christ dying upon the cross has an infinite effect, because it extends for the rest of eternity. That's why it says in the Psalms, his mercy endures forever. Even though he will look at your offense for all eternity, nevertheless, he also sees your contriteness, and then you will place yourself under his mercy, and then that's what he lets you live under, even though he sees it for all eternity. So he's literally merciful even to the people in heaven. The only ones who didn't get to enjoy his actual mercy are the angels, who were always faithful because they never committed anything evil. But the rest of us, his mercy endures forever.
Beautiful. Well, Father, I feel really good about this interview.
Good.
Would you like to end it in a prayer?
Sure. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Jesus, we give you thanks for everything that you have given us during this, and for all the knowledge that you have communicated through divine revelation, which has come down through us through the tradition of the Catholic Church, and that we have actually been able to make use of. We also thank you for all of the graces that you have given to all of us, and we ask you to continue to give us the grace so that we may be faithful to your call to become holier, but also that we may be willing to follow the truth regardless of personal cost. And in that, then, God, we will finally arrive at you, who is truth itself. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Well, Father, I hope the next time I see us fly fishing on the river.
I hope so, too.
All right.
All right. God bless you.
God bless.
No matter where you're watching the Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this at all, anything, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a review.
Something that used to terrify me in my business was doing my finances. So now I use Zero. It generates a lot of reports that help me make sound decisions. When I think I'm slow, I can look at Zero and Zero's like, no, you're still doing good.
It was like the way I want to do it, I want it to be a legacy piece. And I kind of studied, I don't know if I'd say study, but I saw TV, you know, the thing changed, it changes like every 3 to 5 seconds.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, that must be an attention thing. So I wanted multiple cameras and I wanted a comfortable set, you know, where you're not sitting erect in front of a microphone. And so that people can really kind of, you know, peel back the onion.
I'll let you know if I'm sitting erect. I don't anticipate
right on.
anything like that in the next couple hours. But hey, look, at this point in my life, if it happens, I'll take it as a win.
I'm sure that'll go viral.
No, but it's the combination of deliberateness and honesty that gives you authenticity. You're a weapons expert, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very deliberate thing to be. That's a very consequential space to occupy. Don't have a lot of room for mistakes, and when you make one, it leaves a mark, right?
Yes.
So you bring that sensibility into the communication world. That's interesting. It's thoughtful, but it's dangerous because if it goes too far, then everybody gets a stick up their ass and then nobody has an honest exchange. On the other hand, you're so aggressively self-deprecating. You're so, like, you're in the communication business as a self-described introvert and a terrible conversationalist who has conversations that often eclipse 3 hours. Now, that makes you really interesting to somebody like me, and obviously to the millions of people who are watching this now, because people love to buy things, but they don't really like to be sold anything. And so, you know, if I were interviewing you, which I hope to one day, I would love to talk to you about the way you think about sponsorship and the way you think about endorsements, because I make my living in that space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether directly or through the podcast or just by delivering a show like Dirty Jobs, which was paid for 100% by advertisers. You and me, we're in the advertising game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being honest about that and being honest with your viewer about that, that's the first thing to do to get permission to talk as candidly as you do about the subjects you approach. And that's fragile and it's valuable. And whatever you've done to navigate that,
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean it. It's a short list. And it's ever changing. So be careful out there.
I will. Thank you.
No misfires. No backfires.
We've already had a couple.
Check the chamber.
Yeah. But, well, let's get to you. So, I'd love to do a life story on you. And then...
I'll wait in the car.
and then I know we're going to talk about some AI data centers and all of that good stuff. And,
I can't wait.
And the stuff.
Dude, I'm so excited. Is this Black Rifle coffee I'm drinking? I think it is. I got it out here.
Is it? It might be.
I think it is. It's pretty good.
It might be Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know.
I'll let you know when I have to get rid of it.
All right.
Because from what I can tell, I'm liable to be here for 5 hours.
Let me give you an introduction.
All right.
Mike Rowe. You're an Emmy Award-winning television host, producer, narrator, and best-selling author, best known as the creator and host of Dirty Jobs. Through the Mike Rowe Works Foundation, you've helped award millions of dollars in work ethic scholarships and become one of the nation's strongest advocates for skilled trades and vocational education.
That's fair.
You're also the host of the Way I Heard It podcast, where you've interviewed everyone from entrepreneurs to tradespeople to scientists and everyday Americans with extraordinary stories. Throughout your career, you've challenged conventional ideas about success, arguing that opportunity often exists in the jobs many people overlook. Welcome to the show.
Wow. Wow. I mean, it's very concise, and I got no beef with any of that. It's very flattering and accurate, if I don't say so myself. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. I'd like to hear it again.
All right. No. And everybody starts off, everybody gets a gift.
Oh.
When your auto insurance shows up, every call, every claim, every day, that's a win. J.D. Power has ranked AAA #1 for auto insurance customer satisfaction in the Southwest, 2 years running. Get a quote at AAA.com/quote. Visit JDPower.com for details.
On the under $3 menu at McDonald's, a McChicken is $2. Because when you're craving a McChicken, you deserve a McChicken. And now, that McChicken is just $2.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.
Tell me about these.
So those are Vigilance League gummy bears, and I was just telling you, actually, that when I started this podcast in my attic with my wife, we couldn't get any advertisers, probably because I had no filter. So we started a Patreon account, and we started selling gummy bears. And we're still selling them to this day.
You got to remember your roots.
Yep. So they're made here in the USA up in Michigan.
Love it.
Ooh.
With that in mind, I brought you 2 things. I was only going to bring the one, and then I did a little, research. You don't drink anymore, right?
I don't. Sober 4 years.
And yet, what are we looking at here?
A lot of booze. Doesn't control me anymore.
You're Sam Malone. You're the bartender in Cheers. That's the dichotomy I was talking about before, right?
Yep.
So, my pop was Carl Noble. He inspired Dirty Jobs. He was he only went to the 7th grade. But by the time he was 30, he was a licensed electrician, a plumber. He could take your watch apart, blindfolded, put it back together.
Wow.
He had the chip, right? Could build a house without a blueprint, that guy. And I grew up on a little farm in Baltimore County next to him and my grandma. And he was the guy. He cast a long shadow, man. He was so smart and so kind. And my earliest memories are of he and my dad, like, waking up clean and going out into the world to fix some problem and coming home dirty. Like, that was my first look at work. Anyway, he turned 90, and I was working for that thing at CBS I was telling you about, Evening Magazine, and my mom called to say, Michael, your grandfather's turning 90 years old, and I've got the perfect gift for you to give him. I'm like, all right, what is it? Now, at the time, I'm hosting this this local TV show, and I'd sung in the opera. I'd sold stuff on the QVC cable shopping channel. I'd had 300 jobs in broadcasting, because the handy gene is recessive. And even though I wanted to follow in my pop's footsteps, I just didn't get the, it didn't come easy to me.
Yeah.
Long story short, his name was Carl Noble, and when we rebooted Dirty Jobs during the lockdown, I decided to put his name on some whiskey that's made down the street here as a fundraiser for my foundation.
Man, that is cool.
Well, we're in 30 states now. The thing has won, I don't know how many gold medals, and it's totally out of control. And I guess I'm in the liquor business. I didn't mean to be. But my granddad, who really didn't drink either, his name is now on a bottle of award-winning whiskey, and I just wanted you to have it, to do with what you will. Give it away, put it on display.
Thank you.
And then,
very cool.
You definitely don't have this one, but you strike me as the kind of guy that probably has a knife or two lying
Got it,
around. So I become friends with a guy called Josh Smith.
Oh, I know Josh.
Do you?
Yeah.
Have you had him on?
No, I've met him at a couple events.
This guy came on my podcast a couple years ago and said some really nice things about my foundation. And I said, if you make a MicroWorks knife to help me raise some money for these scholarships we do, that would be awesome. So of course he did, and we raised like $100 grand in 3 days. And then he said, Mike, this matters to me a lot. So he made what he described as the ultimate blue-collar utility knife. He called it the Rocker, and he gives a chunk of every sale back to my foundation. I didn't ask him to do this. This guy he was a lineman who starts making knives in his garage.
He was a lineman?
He was a lineman for years. Farm boy, working with electricity, also a bladesmith. Gets a deal when he's a teenager to go make a sword for a sheik over in Saudi Arabia somewhere. And he does it. Comes back, winds up getting on, what is that show? Forged in Steel or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? So he gets a little notoriety and decides, I'm going to make the best knives in the country in my garage. So that's basically what he and his wife did, just like you started this podcast.
Wow.
So he opens his facility a month and a half ago. He took it up a notch in the same way you did. Dude, he's got 120 employees. He's doing like $12 million a year making knives in the USA.
I love it.
And this is the very first version of the Rocker. He's just re-upped it. It benefits my foundation, and he wanted you to have the first one. So,
take a look here.
And for me, man, look, this country is either going to figure out how to start making things again, or it's going to circle the drain.
Yeah.
And if we can do it with a knife, we ought to be able to do it with a car. We ought to be able to do it with the chairs we're sitting in.
Look at that beauty.
For a legal hand to form your business, visit LegalZoom.
At Planet Fitness, your pace is as personal as your playlist. Join for $1 down and get up to 3 free months of Apple Music. No commitment. Deal ends July 31st.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
Look at that.
It's sharp, and he'll keep it sharp for the rest of your life. Just send it back if it needs sharpening.
No kidding.
It's a great American story. It's a great product. And, modesty aside, last night I was talking to my partner about this. It's like, the business of making whiskey and doing it right, the business of making a knife and doing it right, the business of making a podcast, doing it right, shooting a gun, doing it right, getting it done, whatever the it is, That's the jam. That's what's for sale, I think.
What a great guy. I'm glad
Solid.
you guys are partnered.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've seen his facility, and I didn't know I didn't know he's a lineman, but I know he just built that facility, and I know it started as kind of a grassroots, very small shop, and I love those stories because I think that's what brings hope to all the people out there that are saying you can't make it, there's no way, American dream's gone. It's like, no, it's not. You just got to find the thing that resonates with you. And
What is
stuff.
the American dream?
I think the American dream is the fact that you can come here and build anything you want and find success if you work hard, if you have a hard work ethic, a good work ethic, and a creative idea.
Let me run this by you. I got one of the news agencies asked me to write 400 words on whether the American dream is alive or dead and why. And I normally don't do that stuff, but it was on my mind, and we're going to be 250, right, in a couple of weeks. And so I went this way, just because I didn't want to say the same thing I thought everybody else would probably say. I said, the American dream died a long time ago, and I'm really glad it did. And I'll tell you why. It died in 1783, when we signed the Treaty of Paris and actually became the United States. Prior to that, everything we had dreamt of, life and liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the Bill of Rights, all these ideas, they were dreams. And then they were real. And they've been real ever since. So, yeah, the American dream was a thing, and then it turned into the American reality. And now it's a reality that we get to shape for ourselves. And your experience may vary, Maybe you'll make whiskey, maybe you'll make knives, maybe you'll make TV shows about work, maybe you'll make a podcast, whatever it is. But the idea that doesn't exist, it's just bananas. Of course it exists. It has for as long as I've been alive. And I think for as long as we've been us.
Yeah, I know it's still alive. I mean, I got two examples that are recent, within the past 4 years. One of them, when I finally got out of my attic.
Dude, that should be your book if you haven't written it yet.
When the wife finally kicked me out of the attic, so I don't want these people over here anymore. I went and got a very small garage, like a auto mechanics, one bay garage, and with 2 offices in it. And we built the studio in there. And I couldn't afford a construction, crew to come in and design it, do all the shit. And so there was a building being put up right across the street. Of course, a bunch of Latino workers that went over there. None of them spoke English. I speak Spanish. They come over, they're like, it was around Easter, and he's like, I can come over on Easter Sunday and I'll frame this whole thing out for you. I was like, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years later, I had him do some more work, and he's telling me, he comes around, he's speaking English now, he's got some new cologne, he's got a nice watch, good sunglasses, a brand new car, and he goes, he's just telling me, he's like, I have like 5 crews now. And I'm like, that's fucking awesome, man. Good for you. Like, you come here, you work your ass off, you don't bitch, whine, and complain. You work.
On Easter Sunday.
Now you have 5 crews.
Yeah.
And you can't even keep up. That's awesome. And then another one, Laura, who you met.
Yeah.
My
She's
producer.
awesome, by the way. Your whole team. Solid.
It's like a family here.
Really great.
But her husband he started a fence company earlier this year. And I think he's going to clear like $200,000 or $300,000 in revenue on his first year. Just building wood fences. It's awesome.
We love our Verbo. Our chef's kitchen, even better than the reviews. Obviously, it's a loved by guests home. Also obvious, my colleague.
It's hard enough to find clean food for ourselves, let alone our dogs. And with a lot of dog food, you look at the label, and it's full of ingredients you don't recognize. A lot of kibble is cooked with SRS50 at checkout. That's 50% off your first order at sundaysfordogs.com/SRS50. sundaysfordogs.com/SRS50 or use code SRS50 at checkout.
Is this for Patreon? Or
Yeah,
is
this is for Patreon. We got a couple questions for you.
Hit me.
TJ Smith. Mike, you often champion skilled trades as a path to opportunity. How can young Americans entering blue-collar careers today realistically achieve financial stability, a healthy family life, and a promising retirement when the cost seems to demand more hours, more overtime, and less time at home?
I would start by saying that virtually everyone who is working in the trades through my scholarship is mid-six figures. They're killing it. Not everyone, but it's not like the challenges you're going to face as a young person getting started are the result of the trade. People hate to hear this. Why do you think stories like that inspire certain cohorts but anger others? Like, why is success so annoying to some people and so inspirational to others?
I think that's a great question. I think that, it's just an entitlement problem. I think people don't, I don't really know where it comes from, but I think that there's just a lot of people out there that are unwilling to put the work in, or maybe they went to a prestigious school and thought something was going to happen afterwards and didn't, and they see somebody who maybe has a lower IQ, who's not as smart as them and not as well educated, and but they have the work ethic and they don't have that entitlement, and it works, and
yeah. I was thinking about this in the shower this morning, weirdly. I feel like maybe to some extent some excuses have been removed. Like, I don't know, I feel sometimes like there's so much information out there, like I'm drinking from a fire hose, like there's so much to learn, and no matter how much you learn, all you really wind up concluding is that the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
Like the more you know, the more you realize you don't. And it's like so that's one thing. But the other thing about all the information, all the podcasts, all the interesting guests, is that it's all that's adjacent to all the knowledge in the world, right? I mean, like if you have one of these things and an internet connection, you have access to 98% of every single thing we've ever known, and it's accessible. Point is, like, if you don't understand algebra or trigonometry or calculus, if you can't make a persuasive case for the relevance of the Stoics or philosophy, if you can't talk at all about Nietzsche or Descartes or force equals mass times acceleration, if you don't have any of that, what's your excuse? Like for a long time, like maybe most of all of time, you could say, I don't have access to that. I don't have money. I can't go to a school. I was born here. I look like this. I look like that. I just don't have access. Like there's no way I could ever, be that informed. But if you're curious, which I think is a choice, right? It's kind of like work ethic. You can choose to be curious. Well, now your accessibility is unlimited. You can get to any site, anywhere, anytime, 24 hours a day. I literally just watched a lecture from MIT from my hotel room the other day for free. It's like we're living in a time where there's absolutely no excuse not to be informed. But at the same time, we are so overwhelmed with information that we're exhausted by it. So, I'm not sure what the point is exactly, except back to your first question, how do I like podcasting? It's kind of hard to answer because I feel like part of what I'm trying to navigate is all these smart people with all these incredible ideas, and they've made their documentaries and they've written their books and they've accomplished so much, and I want to hear about it, but I can't get to all of them.
Yeah.
And then I turn on the news, and I saw this clip the other day that really made me laugh. The guy's like, is it just me, or does anybody else just not give a shit anymore? Like, is it just me, or like, what is happening with the chemtrails? Why do I care? How much should I care? The seed oils? Is this a problem? Is it a big problem? Maha, MAGA, what? The Strait of Hormuz? Why do I know about that? Why do I know? Like, don't you care? Don't you want to know what's going on? Well, yes, I do. But then once I know, you're just going to tell me about something else that I didn't know, and I don't know what to do with that information.
Yeah.
Anyway, if there's a point in all that, it's that people love your show because you're a docent. A docent is a fancy word for a guide in a museum. Like, you walk into a museum for the first time, it's overwhelming. I don't know if you've been to the Smithsonian. It's overwhelming. It's like you can't even begin to get your head around the totality of the exhibits. So you need a docent to walk you around and explain what's what, the context. Like, I need a docent in this room. We could probably spend an hour. You could walk me around and you could explain why the things on your wall are there. And they would have new meaning for me. But I can't look at any of it and know anything. I need a guide, dude. I need somebody to walk me through the weaponry. I need somebody to... we all do. I was at a cheesecake factory the other day. When's the last time you went to a cheesecake factory?
It's been a while.
Check out the menu. It's this thick.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of entrees. There are 1,000 desserts. There are pictures.
Everything from a bowl of chili to sushi.
There's an index in the menu. There's a table of contents. Because the menu's so big, you need a docent. You need a guide. I just want a cheeseburger. Well, what kind? On page 34, you'll notice you got the Wagyu, you got the... I think people are exhausted by the amount of information and aware that they're never going to be able to process all of it. And on the other hand, I think people are embarrassed by their own ignorance because there's no excuse for it. And somewhere in between, this place I call it Podcast Landia, this mythical kind of Narnia evolved, where docents and guides have appeared to help us make sense of the inexplicable.
Liberty Bibberty. That's my name. I tell everyone it feels great getting great coverage and savings on car insurance with
It's a good point. Couple things. The coolest thing in this room is that sword up there. That's from he's going to be 103 this year, I believe.
Up there?
Yep, that sword up there. 103-year-old World War II veteran. His name's Don Graves. He was a flamethrower in Iwo Jima. And he came in and he saw all this stuff. The majority of this stuff is not mine. It's from guests that have been on the show. And so he said, oh, I have something for you. And he sent in that sword that he took off a Japanese.
Is that a Japanese?
Yep.
The mandatory one they carried for the... What's the name? Is seppuku?
I can't remember.
I think it's seppuku or something like that, but... So he was on Iwo.
Yep. Another thing, so you had just mentioned there's so much info. You thought you knew so much from all the information that you gathered that you made you realize you don't know anything.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. Pretty recently came to this conclusion. I mean, after, 5 years of building this, I thought I knew who our biggest enemies were. All these things, right? All the stuff in tech, and I was building this, you know, thing of knowledge.
Little monument to yourself,
And,
maybe?
yeah, and then everything I thought I believed in and was for is been the complete opposite, and it just made me realize, Sean, you don't know shit, nothing.
Well,
when did you arrive to that conclusion?
Oh, I have a version of it every day. The Greeks have a great word for it. They have two great terms I love. The Greek word for discovery is anagnoresis. And Aristotle writes about it a lot when he tries to define what makes a plot good, right? Plots are driven forward by discoveries. The characters on a hero's journey, they discover things along the way that informs their worldview, their perceptions, and so forth. All good dramas, especially a hero's journey, are littered with anagnoreses. And but the great stories, you know, the ones that win Emmys and the ones that we quote, they all have a specific form of anagnoresis. It's called a peripeteia, or a peripatetic moment, or a peripety. You can find it in your favorite movie, I guarantee it, or your favorite book. And it's a form of discovery when our hero realizes that everything he thought he knew was wrong. It's literally the realization that changes the course of the narrative. And remember, Aristotle, he defined a tragedy as the moment in a narrative when the hero comes face to face with the undeniable and inescapable truth of his own reality. So these peripeteias, if you look for them, you'll find them everywhere. Like the most famous one is probably in Oedipus Rex, the famous king who discovers through the story, through anagnoresis, a great many things about life and leadership and war, you know? And among these discoveries is the fact that he really enjoys the company of older women. And so he, of course, famously marries one. And the plot goes along, and Oedipus is the king. And then in Act 4, I think, you know, he has his peripeteia when he realizes his wife, whom he's had several children, is his mother. Now, when you realize your wife is also your mom, your narrative goes in a different direction. Okay? This is why people still quote Oedipus today. It's why, like if you watch The Sixth Sense, like Bruce Willis, the whole movie is anagnoresis. Oh, he's a psychiatrist, and there's this little kid, Cole. Poor Cole's, he's got mental problems. Why? Well, he sees dead people. And the plot unfolds, and it's wrapped in mystery, and pretty soon Bruce discovers this little kid is pretty great. And in fact, you know what? Maybe he's not crazy. And in the end, he has his peripeteia, and he realizes, A, the kid really can see dead people, and B, the kid is looking at him. Ergo C, he's dead. And when you realize you've been dead the whole movie, and you're the hero, changes the directive of the narrative. So maybe you had a peripeteia. Maybe you realized everything you thought you knew or believed in just kind of shit the bed, and now maybe you gotta figure out what do you do about that.
I don't know what the hell you do about that, but
well,
starting over.
This is why God gave us a sense of humor. It's why He gave us a sense of curiosity, and most of all, it's why we have a thing called humility.
Normally make a snack plate with these Bavarian meat sticks. These are absolutely delicious. They have 0 sugar and they taste amazing.
I mean, that's my theory. And I look back at the peripeties in my life, and they are always humbling, discerning, unsettling, and really important.
Yeah, I definitely took something out of that one.
Well, what was it, man? What was the inciting incident? I saw your interview with Megan.
Well, there was a lot of it. Was within that, but
I mean, drip, 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 frog in the boiling water, or like
probably drip, drip. It didn't take long, so probably frog in the boiling water. It was from the get-go. I was kind of like, I don't know about how this is all going, but what it taught me is, you know, maybe don't get so fucking tied to your own opinions.
Don't fall in love with your own smack.
Nope. So, it's taught me to be a lot more open-minded, and I always considered myself pretty open-minded. But after this last go-around, I don't think I will involve myself in politics very much longer.
Were you ever really involved in politics, or were you just...
It kind of just happened. It kind of just happened. And I wouldn't say I'm involved in politics just through the interviews, you know, but, yeah, it just, that last presidential election, I tried to get everybody. Actually, I did try to get everybody. I really tried to get Kamala. We did a couple press releases to try to pressure her to get on. We were talking with her team, and she wouldn't come. But she said she was going to come for a while, and then it just kind of fell off. But because I always wanted to be fair and balanced, but unfortunately I couldn't get anybody from that side.
Why do you want to be fair and balanced?
I want to know, I think it's important that you know what everybody's perspective on things are. Because one thing that I did that would go way against what I thought my audience would like is I interviewed this guy. His name's Chris Beck. Are you familiar with him?
Give me more.
The first transgender Navy SEAL.
Yes.
He wrote the Warrior Princess. And everybody in the SEAL teams just despised this person. And to be honest with you, he's one of the most brilliant people I've ever sat with. I mean, the way his mind works and what he's invented, and he's just a really, really bright guy. But anyways, I wanted to bring him on because I have an opinion about that issue, especially when it comes to kids. And he has since transitioned back to a male. And so I wanted to give him a platform, and I wanted to hear his journey, you know, his legit journey into how it happened, what the process was like, why he decided to come back without injecting my own opinions or biases. And, you know, kind of the point was the interview for me was I wanted to showcase this is what you kids are in for. If you're looking to do this, here's the roadmap. This is what you're in for. To help them make maybe somewhat of a more educated decision, you know. And nobody else would do it. And it was fascinating. And it made me understand. I was like, okay, that's how that could happen.
So he came in or no?
He did come.
He did come.
It was an awesome episode. It's one of my favorite episodes. And, you know, when he describes how it happened, it kind of, for me at least, it kind of opened my heart up.
To the transition or the retransition?
To the transition. I just wanted to understand, you know, like how the fuck can somebody go through this?
Yeah.
And the way he described it and what happened to him, which was horrific. I mean, Cliff Notes version, horrific childhood, severe abuse, lots of sexual abuse, whipping boy of the family. so he would go up to the attic by himself and wear his sister's clothes. Not because he wanted to be a woman, but because all that kid knew was getting his ass whipped by his old man and being sexually abused by the neighbor. And so he just wanted to feel like he was somebody. He just didn't want to be him because he had no happiness. He just lived in fear and dealt with severe trauma from a very young age. And so he'd go up to the attic, and he'd try this fucking dress on, and he would pretend that he was his sister because his sister was like the golden child of the family.
And it wasn't a dress, obviously. It was armor.
Yep.
He put his armor on.
So fast forward, then he becomes a Navy SEAL, has all that trauma to deal with, gets hooked on cocaine, he's riding with the Hells Angels, starts going to therapy to clean it up, tells the therapist, if you've ever done therapy, you know you're going back to childhood, and tells the therapist about the dress in his childhood, and she is an activist, and there it is. You want to be a woman, you want to write a book, you want to do this, you want to do that. And he wrote the book, High on Drugs, and while he was high on drugs, she slipped him an NDA, or not an NDA, a contract. He signed over the rights to the book to this therapist. Anyways, so that's how it happened. And when you think about it, while it wouldn't be the direction I would go, I can at least understand, like, fuck, man, you've been through some horrific shit that most people will never understand. And this is a path that you kind of got coaxed into. And now you're back. Whether you came back or not, though, I could still understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, it feels to me sometimes like people think in order to understand a person, they have to understand their circumstances. But you really don't. Like, if you understand anagnorisis and the hero's journey, if you understand peripeteia, and if you can find one in your own life, it's a lot easier to see them in other people's lives. And even though the circumstances might seem wildly divergent, the feeling is when you realize that everything you thought you knew about a thing that you were good at was wrong. That, if you're being honest with yourself, in my opinion, the real gift of that is that you can see it in other people. And maybe it helps with your empathy. Maybe it just helps to be a better human, to be honest. Now, your peripeteia may vary, you like, oh no, my wife's my mom? Wow. That's over here. My peripeteia was I realized I was not a very good host, actually. I was in the hosting business.
I don't consider yourself a good host.
I'm okay. I'm good enough. I'm a good enough host to make a living. Like if I'm at the slot machine and I'm pulling the lever, the host lever, it pays enough to keep me pulling the lever. That's what I did for 20 years. I impersonated a host. On Dirty Jobs, I realized actually I wasn't. I was more of a guest or an apprentice maybe, or like an avatar. I started to think differently about my own job in the sewer in San Francisco. When I was filming the first episode, it was like, oh, and light bulb. I'm way better not knowing things I don't know than pretending to know things.
Well, yeah.
I'm way better, and the viewer likes me a lot more, if I'm honest, about my shortcomings, of which there are many. That was a peripeteia for me because I'd been paid for 20 years to hit the mark and say the line. It's not that I'm a bad host. I can look in the lens and I can talk like this and I can say any number of things that, would generate a paycheck once upon a time. That's not what Dirty Jobs was. And that's not what most of the stuff I've done since then is. Peripeteia. Like, oh, Anyhow, your brain, when you tell your brain what to find, it'll find it. when you tell it what to look for. You know, it's a very simple yet complicated mechanism. So with regard to everything that's been in the headlines, from my point of view, for the last however long, I try and think, well, who's having the anagnorisis? Who's having the peripatia? And right now, I think, God, man, that's part of the, back to your first question, how do I like podcasting? Well, I love it because it's filled with these peripatetic moments, you know, and a lot of people are writing books and telling stories, whether they know it or not, that kind of hinge on that moment. Chris Beck certainly did. I mean, that book is Peripatia 101. So yeah, I the only way to understand all the craziness and all the divergence around us is to have a look at the divergence and the craziness within us.
Have you had any recently?
Some so-called SUVs feel more like toys. You need a real vehicle that'll handle real life. Like the all-new 2027 Kia Seltos. With its best-in-class interior room, it'll make the others feel like toys. Check out the new 2027 Kia Seltos X-Line. It's real-world ready. Kia. Movement that inspires. Limited inventory available. Comparison based on publicly available data regarding cargo room in 2026 and...
Peripetias? No, right now I'm having a pretty good run on you know, the I told you so circuit, which is the opposite. I mean, I run this foundation called MicroWorks. It evolved out of Dirty Jobs. We award work ethic scholarships to kids who want to learn a trade.
I saw that. Since it's your first year, it's 10 million this year, correct?
It's 10 million this year, but 18 years ago it was zero. I started it when Dirty Jobs was at its height. And you're old enough to remember, it's 2008. Dirty Jobs was on in 140 countries. It was launching spin-offs every week. I was killing it. I was having the time of my life. I was doing the show I should be doing on the network I love. Everything's perfect. Country went into a recession, and every morning there are these headlines about the number of people who are out of work. 6 million, 8 million, 10, 12 million people. And on Dirty Jobs, it seemed like everywhere we went, we saw help wanted signs. So like, well, why are all these people unemployed, and why are all these opportunities open? And that was my first introduction to the skills gap in America. At the time, in 2008, there were 2.3 million open jobs. Most of them didn't require a 4-year degree. They required training and people who were willing to show up early, stay late, and work. You know? And I would go out after most of these shoots with the people who invited us in. We'd have a beer, we'd talk about the day, and a lot of these guys were, you know, small business owners, men and women. And I would ask them, you know, what's the biggest challenge you have to make a go of it, whether it's whiskey or knives, or like, what's the sticky point? And it was always that. It was finding that person who wanted to master a skill and apply it. Anyhow, MicroWorks was an attempt to shine a light on those jobs that were open, because those industries had been very good to me, and it grew from there. Fans of Dirty Jobs built a massive trade resource center online. It was like zip code by zip code that hooked people up to jobs that were available right in their area. And this was kind of alarming because the headlines, remember, were like, there are no jobs. All these people are out of work. And so there's this idea, which is really like an artifact, I think, from the Great Depression, that the way to get rid of unemployment is to create more jobs. But that doesn't quite line up, because there were 2.5 million open jobs in 2009 when 12 million people were out of work. Today, there's 7.5 million. open jobs right now.
Are there really?
7.5 million. Most of them don't require a four-year degree. They require training and a willingness to work. Also, quick sidebar, but outstanding student debt is $1.7 trillion. Most of that's held by people who went to university, many of whom didn't graduate, but got the debt nevertheless. You've got 6.9 million men, able-bodied, who are not only not working, they're not looking for work. And that's never happened, dude. Not in peacetime, anyway. And maybe you could argue we're not exactly in peacetime, but you got 7 million guys not working. You've got 7.4 million open jobs. You've got $1.7 trillion in outstanding student loans. We're still telling kids that the best path for the most people is the most expensive path, and we're lending money we don't have to these same kids who are never going to be able to pay it back, train them for a bunch of jobs that don't exist anymore. Bananas, stupid. So MicroWorks became an attempt to just cry foul on all of that and make a more persuasive case for the jobs that we do have. So flash forward, I was kidding about the victory lap, but a lot of what I was arguing back in the day has come to pass. I went to Congress twice to talk about the need for a national effort to reinvigorate the skilled trades. My basic argument was, look, you have to prove to this generation that you can make six figures working with your hands. You have to show them welders who are prospering, and electricians and steam fitters and pipe fitters and mechanics, people like my granddad, you know, who weren't cut out at all for college, but who were freaking smart and eager to apply their knowledge. You know, like you gotta find that kid and you have to show them this path, because that's the right path for them. And right now, look, we took shop class out of high school. It had to be the dumbest thing in the history of modern education, right? So we set the table in a really jacked up way, and today we have a colossal imbalance in the workforce. Most people simply don't realize how bad it is, but not a week goes by. I'm not even exaggerating that MicroWorks doesn't hear from the leader of some consequential industry or the CEO of a big company or some elected official who is really like ringing the alarm bell, worried about the skills gap. Blue Forge Alliance, the company that oversees the maritime industrial base, I'm sure you're familiar. They're 15,000 companies who are collectively charged with delivering our submarines, our nuclear-powered subs. 2 Columbia, 1 Virginia class a year. I think it's a 2+1 cadence. I might have them reversed, but it's a massive undertaking. We need 3 a year. They called. They're like, we're having a hell of a time finding welders and electricians. Can you help? I said, maybe. How many do you need? 400,000.
400,000 welders?
In the next 8 years, they need to hire 400,000 skilled workers. Many are welders. The shipbuilding industry. China built 1,000 ships last year. We built 3. Okay? Rare earths, critical minerals, we can get into all that stuff too, but the front line of this is skilled labor. The data center thing, dude, Larry Fink, who runs BlackRock, told me that the companies in his portfolio alone needed 300,000 electricians.
All he doesn't pay for cart wranglers, no savings go to you.
What's coming is an infrastructure build-out that's being calculated at $9 to $10 trillion over the next 9 years. A lot of it's data centers, but it's a lot of other stuff too. And we can get into data centers and AI. It's all fascinating to me, but it's all kind of academic if you can't build them And if you can't build them because of a shortage of skilled labor, that'll go down in history as one of the greatest unforced errors of all time. And that's what people are beginning to realize. We have to reinvigorate the trades. We must, or we're going to be in a level of trouble that's truly unprecedented. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but every 5 tradesmen, for every 5 who retire this year, 2 replace them.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you have any idea how many welders there are in the U.S. right now?
I can tell you that whatever the number is, we need 400,000 more. I can tell you we're underwater. Like, it's worse with electricians right now. I was in Plano, Texas, a couple months ago. Got a tour of the base. Been talking about them for a while, but I hadn't really seen one up close. Oh my God. I mean, amazing. Kind of terrifying, but also kind of awesome. Enormous. I ran into 3 electricians, all under 30, all making north of 240 grand a year, all debt free. Now, here's the craziest part. All 3 had been poached 3 times in the prior 18 months. Now, does that mean that's going on in Sacramento and Phoenix, and Tallahassee and Bangor? I don't know, but it's going on in Plano, and it's happening in different areas. The shortages are so acute that the companies don't have time to train. They have to poach. And so, great news for an electrician, but it's a little weird for the economy overall. So long story short, this issue has been in front of me for years, and it evolved organically out of dirty jobs. And now I'm back in D.C. because the Department of War got the memo, and they're going to launch a big campaign in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be in it. It's going to be called Build Freedom, and we're going to try and make a more persuasive case for these jobs that exist in the industrial base. I just sat with the president of Meta yesterday in front of Maria Bartiromo to announce their initiative. It's called America's Workplace Academy. Dude, these guys are they're in 4 states. They want to be in all 50, but the pilot program is an appeal to anybody who wants to learn to be an electrician or a fiber optic specialist. These are all in demand. They're paying you to learn. It's a 5-week accelerated course. You're guaranteed your certifications. All your expenses are covered, travel, everything, and you're guaranteed a job on the other end. Wow. Now, that's what's going on in workforce. And you can go down the list. Meta's one company. You look at Lowe's, Home Depot, and Ford. You look at Wells Fargo, who supports my foundation. A bank has become the biggest supporter of my foundation and not a traditional, like, blue-collar company. Why? Because they know. They know what's coming. They've done the math. It's a problem.
Wow. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We talk about mental health more openly, but asking for help can still be hard. A lot of people believe therapy is a good thing, and they'd encourage a friend to get support. But when it's them, they hesitate. BetterHelp's 2026 State of Stigma report surveyed 2,000 Americans and revealed that 85% of Americans believe getting support is wise. Yet 74% say society discourages people from doing so. That gap matters. We know support helps, but stigma keeps people from taking the first step. BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform. With over 30,000 fully licensed therapists in the U.S., they've served over 6 million people globally, and they have an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. You start with a short questionnaire, and BetterHelp does the initial matching work based on your needs and preferences. And if the therapist is not the right fit, you can switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. Don't let stigma stand in the way of support. Start therapy with BetterHelp. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/SRS. That's better, H-E-L.
The box. Nothing is more prized in the feline ecosystem, filled with everything a cat could ever need, and yet the box is all they really want. To nurture their natural habits, shop Chewy.
I wanted to earn a top-rated degree in computer science while still being able to raise my kids.
To simulate the human heart on a microchip.
To learn from legends without having to leave set.
LP.com/SRS. I know you've been beating this drum for a long time, but when did you, I mean, this was way before AI and all this other shit was even on the radar. So
Oh, yeah.
what was the first inkling that you got that you were like, this is going to become a problem?
Well, on a personal level, I become friends with the guy that built my house. And I think the youngest guy on his crew was 55. And so I started talking to general contractors, you know, in the construction game, just to say, how do you recruit? How do you keep them? How long do they stay? What are the barriers? And it's just shocking. Look, this whole thing, the sheer numbers are a problem. The demographics are a problem. There's just, you don't need to be an economist to know that 5 out and 2 in is just no bueno. But it's the stigmas and the stereotypes and the myths and the misperceptions that have kept a whole generation of kids from really looking at these jobs. To this day, if I tell you this, we've had 3,500 people go through my program. I got a story just like the one you told me, the guy that helped build your place out. Do you remember his name? Do you remember the whole situation? I mean, I don't want to...
I don't, off the top of my head.
It's just funny for me, like the ones who stick out. But there was a kid named Michael Gamez who applied for a work ethic scholarship from my foundation, maybe, I don't know, 6 years ago. First kid in his family to go to college. He was 2 years in, and he was in a panic because he realized, as it turns out, mechanical engineering wasn't the thing he really was passionate about. He just wanted to work on cars like his granddad. And he was a gifted mechanic, but he was going down the wrong road, and he already had debt. So he fills out his application, which is a pain in the ass, I admit it. You got to jump through hoops if you're... I'm very stingy with the money I raise. But this kid said all the right things, signed our sweat pledge, made a persuasive case for himself. All the references were good. Gave him some money, went to UTI, got his certification. And a year later was like running the shop for Beverly Hills BMW. And now he's way up the food chain at Rivian. Like, he's making 6 figures. He's got a kid. He's making his own knife. He's making his own boots. He's making his own podcast. He's carved out a real chunk. It's exactly the story you were telling. I got 3,500 of these, man. So, yeah, I'm talking to the Department of War and Meta and Ford and a lot of people at the grown-up table. And I'm telling them all the same thing. It's like, you've got employees who are like Michael Gamez. The country needs to meet him. I can tell a story anecdotally, and so can a lot of big companies. But in the same way your viewers can smell bullshit, the bullshit meter is finely tuned in this country right now. Not anywhere more so than in the generation that needs to enter the skilled trades. So they can't be marketed to in a traditional way. They can't be oversold. The good news is that there's a persuasive case to be made, and there's plenty of evidence, and the evidence demands a verdict. And so, to answer your question, I'm not experiencing a peripeteia at the moment. I'm experiencing something more like irony and the surreal moment when the headlines catch up to your own smack and make you relevant in ways that you didn't totally anticipate.
Yeah, maybe that you didn't want to happen.
No, I'm good. I'll take it this time. I want this. I want it. I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of my partners, and I'm really proud to have a seat at the table, you know. And if that's what Dirty Jobs was for, and look, I love that show, and I loved every moment of it, really. But it's just a show. Shows come and they go, and people remember it fondly, and I'm happy for that. But it launched this thing. And it gave me permission to sit with the Secretary of War and the Secretary of Labor and the Secretary of Energy and all the cats who are now paying attention. That's a kick, man.
What I meant is maybe the situation that we found ourselves in right now. Not what's happening for you and your foundation, but just the situation in general. 'Cause I feel like it's pretty fragile.
When has it ever not been fragile? True. I mean, in this way, it is a little unnerving because an out-of-balance workforce is a problem. But man, this last 250 years, it's not one thing, it's another. If it's not a civil rights problem, it's an infrastructure problem, it's a corruption problem, it's a fraud problem, it's a trust problem. We've had problems. We've had the same problems for a long time. I think maybe they feel a little elevated right now.
Yeah, I would say that's a good description.
The little amplified.
So what is it that you and the Department of War are going to do?
Well, their objective is to make a more persuasive and more honest case for a couple 100,000 jobs that are wide open in the DIB. That's the Defense Industrial Base. And my suggestion is to visit the companies, consequential companies that a lot of people probably haven't heard of, that are really anxious to hire and have great AI-proof six-figure jobs that they're trying to fill. That I call them jobs of consequence, you know, like a chance to work on the kind of tech that I think is going to define the future for the country. So maybe it's Anduril, maybe it's Palantir, maybe it's a company called Hadrian, maybe it's Apex. They're making satellites in a mass-produced way. A bit of a game changer. Take the satellites out of the sketch, and there's no strategy. There's no warfare as we understand it today, anyway. So introducing people to some of these companies. There's a company called Mach who I'm going to talk to in a couple of weeks.
You're gonna love.
You know Mach?
Talking to Ethan?
Yeah. Fucking amazing. He's the bomb. He's coming on my podcast next week. So I'm going to talk to Ethan, and with his permission, I'm going to take cameras to the facility. I want the country to understand what that brilliant 22-year-old is doing. He's got his hands on something really important. And I know you know this. There's an ecosystem of people under 40 who are running companies and doing things that are so freaking cool. They're just cool, and those opportunities need to be presented, not sold, because nobody wants to be sold anything, but people want to buy into something that matters. And so, yeah, I'm looking for companies like that. I'm looking for entrepreneurs like him that are creating jobs like the ones that are AI-proof and a six-figure-ish. And then I want to tap the country on the shoulder and go, hey, get a load of him. Get a load of her. Look at what they're doing. Can you see a future in there for yourself? No wrong answer, but at least look at it. You know, because if you can't see it, you can't even process it. That was the crime of taking shop class out of high school. It didn't just build a detour for a lot of kids who could have entered that vocation. It removed the work from sight. So just a guy like me who was going to get in the entertainment business, just walking from math class to English class, you know, I could stick my head into a wood shop or a metal shop or an auto shop, and I could see something going on that looked like real work. That went away. They had a whole education of kids who weren't even exposed to anything like it.
Man, I mean, you see a lot of kids now that change a light bulb, you know, but, you know, so what is the Department of War gonna do? That's what because I have a suggestion. I mean, there's all these military jobs that are also gonna go away. Pilots. I mean, pilots have been on the chopping block since I was at war back in, what, 2005? We had drones back then. Now it's all going to drones. You don't need drones. You don't need boat captains. Or, I mean, excuse me. You don't really need pilots much anymore. You don't really need boat captains anymore. AI is handling a lot of these kind of things. Why don't we just start manufacturing in the military and start instead of recruiting for pilots, recruiting for whatever the job is that AI is going to replace. Why don't you recruit for fucking welders and plumbers and metal workers and
that,
all of that? Why don't they do that? And then those people get out, and then they go into the economy, and it just fucking works.
That's what this is. This is not a be-all-you-can-be pitch to join the Army or the Navy or the Marines. It's not that. This is more, look at the massive civilian infrastructure that serves those endeavors. You never meet the people who are most responsible for making the hardware or in other adjacent industries. That's where most of the action really is. That's where most of the work really happens. You know, most people, you know, they can aspire to be a pilot, and it's a good point. You can see what's going to be downsized. You can see what's going to change, but the work that's not going to, electricians are not going to go away. Plumbers are not going to go away. Welders are not going to be replaced, not anytime soon, anyway. So, yeah, I can't speak to what the DOW is going to do specifically within that vertical. I can only tell you that after going to Congress multiple times and making this case to multiple administrations, you can still find an open letter from me online to President Obama in 2009, right after I launched this thing. I've offered every administration, for what it's worth, just so you know, we're doing this and it's working. Should you ever get to the point where you're on the same page, let me know. I consider myself a patriot. I don't care who's in office. I want to help. Mm-hmm. So I wrote this letter to the president. Do you remember 3 million shovel-ready jobs? Do you remember that headline?
No.
All right, so in 2009, that was the pitch. It was a big infrastructure pitch, and President Obama had pledged to create 3 million shovel-ready jobs. And I wrote him a letter that you can find today, and I just said, look, man, I'm rooting for you. I love it. Remember, Dirty Jobs is killing it at this point, and I'm out there, and I'm saying, I'm not an expert, but from what I've seen, and I have had a front row seat for a while to a lot of this, I don't think you can, I think you're going to have an easier time filling these positions if you're talking to a country who feels enthused about picking up a shovel. Right? And if you're assuming that shovel-ready jobs are just going to be filled because you create them, I'm afraid you're going to have a hard road. Right? So that's my message. A year ago, I was at an energy conference in Pittsburgh, convened by Dave McCormick, who I know you know, Senator McCormick. All the cats are there, 35 CEOs, the President of the United States, they're all there. I'm on a panel with Howard Lutnick, Secretary of, what the hell am I doing on a panel with this guy? But that's what I meant. I get invited to these things now. So I'm sitting in the room with the CEOs and the President of the United States. And they're talking about the commitment to Pennsylvania that needs to happen to usher in this giant infrastructure build-out that's absolutely positively coming. I'm in the room, Sean, when the CEOs pledge $94 billion to Pennsylvania alone to get this thing going, right? And when it's my turn to talk, I say, well, look, I'm rooting for you, Mr. President. I am. I'm always rooting for you. And this reshoring, this reindustrialization that's on everybody's mind, this building things in this country again, knives, whiskey, podcast, whatever, right? I'm for it. I am all for it. But the 2 million jobs you're talking about creating in the manufacturing sector, I gotta ask you, what about the 480,000 open positions in manufacturing right now? If we can't fill those, how are you going to fill these? So, it's a math problem, which is weird because I'm not a math guy, but that's been my question to every CEO I've met in the last 20 years and every elected official who has called me up and put their arm around me and said, hey, it's great to meet somebody who thinks like you. We can work together. Great. But when the chili meets the cheese, what are you guys going to do about the fact that the people weren't lining up for 3 million shovel-ready jobs 18 years ago, and they're not lining up for these jobs now. So what are you going to do to get this generation's attention? How are you going to meet them where they are? This is the first time somebody answered me.
What did they say?
They said, you tell us. What can we do to help? And I said, well, modesty aside, I do want to be a part of it. I do want to help deliver it, but I can't. We have to hear from the people doing the work. We have to hear from Michael Gammons. We have to hear real-world success stories. People crushing it and loving what they're doing. I said, that's the good news. You've got plenty of people. I mean, you can find them in the primes. You can go to Raytheon. You can go to Lockheed. But you can also go to Palantir. And you can go to Anduril. And you can go to Mach. And you can go to Hadrian. And you can go to Apex. And so forth and so on. So, there ought to be a show like Dirty Jobs that focuses on this. We can do that. There ought to be a campaign. There ought to be a big media campaign that constantly taps the country on the shoulder and says, get a load of him, get a load. Here's another one. They're killing it, right? You just have to drip, drip, drip. You got to do it. And, it's easy because people hear me say that and they're like, oh, so it's PR. You're saying we need better PR. Yeah. Yeah, you do.
What they need to do is set an example. I just feel like nobody does that anymore. Nobody sets the example of what they want everybody else to become or what they want them to be.
You're right.
Just tell them.
Well, you're right, because it's easy, because everybody's got a podcast. I'll just tell you, tune in, and I'll tell you what I think today. And then tomorrow I'll tell you something else. And here's another guy. You know what he thinks? Go ahead, tell him. That's what I meant earlier, this fire hose of people telling me things. Whether it's a journalist or a podcaster or an author or a documentarian or me. I'm part of the problem. But what you're saying, I completely agree.
I don't think you're part of the problem, Mike. You're doing an actionable. You're not. You're talking about these politicians and these CEOs of big companies that you've been talking to for the past 20 years, 18 years, and they're just doing this over and over again. They just do this.
Yeah.
And then you come along and you start a foundation, and I don't know how many people you're pumping through trade schools or helping get through, helping financially get through trade schools. But
It's got to be a lot. 10 million a year. That's a big number.
That's
trade school's a 2-year program. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be. You're doing something, so you're not part of the problem. You're part of the solution.
That's nice of you to say. Thanks. I didn't.
There's not very many people like that.
I'm part of the problem.
That
in that,
are
like, you flick on the TV, you scroll around, you hit your news feed, and there's Mike Rowe mouthing off about something. Or maybe I'm just telling a funny story. Whatever it, like, I'm in the ecosystem. I'm part of the noise. That's right. I'm not part of the problem. But it's a noisy solution. And everybody's out there, man. Isn't it amazing? Like, I think of how many guests have I had on my podcast who have their own podcasts? That's interesting. I got a podcast. I'm on your podcast. Now you got to come on my podcast. It'd be rude not to do that, right? So you know you got to come to. You know you got to do that. You know I'm going to hit you up to do that. Pretty soon, you know everybody's going to have a podcast. Like the entire audience is going to be the influencers. Like what happens if Andy Warhol was really right? What if this is everybody's 5 or 15 minutes of fame? What if the audience becomes the creators in total?
Do you think that'll happen?
Statistically, no, it can't. But I'll tell you what has happened, man. People have forgotten. I don't think you have. You're since we're complimenting each other. Who do you work for?
Hey.
All right. Anybody else?
My family, my team.
Next. Keep going.
My audience.
There it is. There it is. Sponsors in there anywhere?
I mean, I guess technically I work for them.
Sure.
But I don't. I have to be me. I cannot fucking be an inauthentic me. I cannot be controlled. I can't. And those conversations happen.
This might get stuck in your head.
You have farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
Doveman knows how far guys will go to stop sweat, and they've heard it all.
Just duct tape them.
Blow dry your pits. Just make your own.
We just lost a sponsor from the Megyn Kelly episode.
Bye-bye.
Yep, see you later. We don't like what you said about MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And then they want to know, then they want to know that I'm not going to tell anybody that they're dropping me.
How'd that work out?
I said, I'm sorry. I'm not going to, you've already fired me. And if you don't fucking like who I am, then don't advertise on my show. I don't give a fuck.
There are only 5 million other podcasts.
Go to them.
We're down to 5 million now, right?
And so, no, I'm never, if anybody comes in and tries to create a narrative or take me away from being who I truly am, then it doesn't work.
Okay. So.
Then you are the noise.
Well, we're all the noise, but, noise is different than sound. Like, you can make a joyful noise. You can be a symphony, or you can be screeching. You could be the woman at the end of the last election, where she's screaming at the sky in frustration. All of it together is just a cacophony. It's just a. My only point is it's super, super noisy out there. Why is your podcast near the top of the food chain? It's because your audience believes you, and it's because you know who you are, and they don't think you're faking it, and I don't think you are either. But it's a great answer. Who do you work for? Me, my family, my team, my audience. Okay, that's great. The answer would be different if you ask different people. People will put the audience in different places. I'm a little different. I don't think I'm as ethically sound as you are. I'm pretty good, but like I put the audience at the top. Because if they go away, obviously the sponsors go away. If they go away, my guests go away. If they go away, I'm just a guy sitting alone talking to himself, you know? And so I think that the audience is like, people forget like just how important it is when you're on a stage, especially, you know, to look out and see those people. Like you completely work for them, and they're so special, and it's so easy to forget. I shouldn't tell this story. I'll try and do it without getting myself in trouble, but I went to an event years ago, a kind of a, I guess, elite, quiet event that I was glad to attend. And at the event, a play was performed. And it was really good. Like, it was an original work. And there was singing, and there was acting, and there was a story, and there was a peripetia, and there was an orchestra. It was amazing. And the audience, maybe 400 people. And at the end of the performance, the authors took the score and the script and threw it in a bonfire. Gone. Never to be performed again.
Interesting.
Fascinating. And my first thought was, that's just so indulgent. Like, why would Mozart throw away Requiem? You do it once. What just happened? And then later I realized, oh, what just happened was the producers and the talent in this production gave 400 people a memory that no one else has. And they turned those 400 people into apostles of a kind, evangelists, for that moment, that night that they had together, where something creatively cool happened and it was transferred to the people who sat there waiting and watching and wanting to be entertained, challenged, or whatever, you know. And that filled me with really a feeling I had never had before. And, you know, if you think about all of the performances that predated mass media as we understand it, where like nothing was recorded, nothing was ever filmed. The whole thing, that production of Oedipus we were talking about before, took place in Greece in front of an audience. And that was it, right? Until the next performance. So, you know, the audience used to be such a vitally integral part. They were the witnesses to the thing. They're the witnesses to this thing. There's millions of them now. And then we'll be cut up in clips and it'll go out. But see, that's such a different ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think of why, I mean, like how do comedians get great today? Well, the same way they always got great. They suck, and then they suck less. And then they get in front of more audiences until they suck less, and then the audiences grow, usually in proportion to their ability to not suck. And then eventually they don't suck. Then they're good, and then the audiences, and so forth and so on. Like, that's how you get better. You get better in front of an audience. And when you're just starting, the audience is small. I think about Lenny Bruce, you know, and some of the great comedians who, you know, bombed horribly and early on in a little club in Greenwich or someplace, right? Big deal. You had a bad night. Not today. Today, everybody is sitting there documenting you on your first night out. All the time. 14 cameras in here, dude. 14 cameras. So, look, I say the wrong thing on a podcast like this, They'll be held to pay. You say the wrong thing, you lose a sponsor. Okay, that's cool. We're all grown-ups. You know, the stakes are, they're actually consequences to mouthing off. They're consequences, and those are great. But I just think about the consequentiality of the audience, and I think about how that's changed now. And 2 nights ago, I was on stage in a big venue, and I'm looking out at the crowd, and I swear to God, dude, 90% of them were looking at me on the screen on their phone. There's this giant filter between the audience and the performer / influencer, whatever it is. And for time immemorial, it wasn't there. And now it is. And I reckon a lot of what we're grappling with all the time, in every way, shape, or form, is a version of that. We're trying to navigate this weird filter that we've put between ourselves and everything that's real.
Hero comes home. Masters of the Universe brings the power. Exclusively to Amazon Prime.
That is the crescendo!
Masters of the Universe. Watch now on Prime.
Makes sense.
This is heavy, dude.
It is heavy. I wasn't expecting it.
I was going to tell some poo stories from Dirty Jobs, getting some artificial insemination stuff.
I've talked about Row Nutrition's liposomal NAD Plus before, and it's one of the few supplements that never leaves my daily stack because I notice the difference. You know that 2 p.m. crash where your energy just falls off? Or when you train hard and it takes longer than it used to bounce back? A lot of guys just chalk that up to getting older. But NAD Plus levels naturally decline with age, and that can affect how your body produces energy and recovers. That's why I take Row Liposomal NAD+. It helps support mitochondrial function, which is basically helping your cells produce energy instead of just leaning on more caffeine to get through the day. I take 1 teaspoon every morning, and especially with summer travel and training, it's been an easy way to support energy, focus, and recovery. And it's simple. It's a liquid, liposomal formula made for better absorption. So you can take it at home in 5 seconds, no expensive clinic visits required. Try Row Liposomal NAD Plus risk-free with their 60-day money-back guarantee and get 20% off with code SRS at rownutrition.com/discount/SRS. Again, that's code SRS for 20% off at rownutrition.com/discount/SRS. I don't know. You know, it's not that I care deeply about my audience, but I can't let them dictate who I talk to and what I talk about. You know, it just wouldn't. You know, something that I interviewed Jim Caviezel once, and we were talking about money. I brought this up a couple times on the show, and he was talking about cars and motorcycles and all the fancy shit.
We're trying every flavor. Sports in today's episode is sponsored by Chime, America's #1 choice for banking.
I love an incentive.
He loves an incentive.
If you want me to do something, slapping on a little extra incentive is pretty much going to seal the deal.
Well, with Chime, Rhett, they incentivize you by making your money work harder. They have a high-yield savings account that earns up to 3.75 APY.
They make it so easy to save with your own money. You can turn on roundups, so every purchase you make rounds up to the nearest dollar, puts the rest in savings.
I love this idea. I want to encourage my own children to do it. And this is a way, I'm always looking for new ways to say, well, I do need to buy another record.
Right.
And another record and another record.
And now you can save a little
with
bit.
all the roundups.
And you're not even really thinking about if I want a new fountain pen. You know, I like to get me a nice little fountain pen, round up, so you are getting something that you want while building the savings that you need.
Chime keeps the savings going by letting you automate a percentage or dollar amount from your paycheck to go directly into your savings account so you're not tempted to spend it.
Say you want to save for something specific, like a vacation or a new laptop. You can set that goal in the app and then watch your progress in real time.
Chime wants you to keep more of your money and earn on it. Make the switch to Chime and go to the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen.
It only takes a few minutes to sign up. Join the millions who are already banking fee-free today. And thanks again to Chime for sponsoring this portion of today's episode.
Today is an anniversary for us.
It's a big one.
It is the 20th anniversary of the first video that we ever posted on YouTube.
What?
It's kind of crazy.
We don't really talk about that video very much. It's not our best work.
Well, we might have broken the law in it.
Yes, but it is the first one we ever posted.
And I'm just talking about we didn't use royalty-free music.
Yes, we used the Braveheart soundtrack.
We might have also thrown a rock.
Yeah, we broke the law in many different ways.
Over a dam.
But it's still up there, and it never got taken down.
Let's celebrate by eating a ton of one of my favorite foods.
All right, yes, there will indeed be lots of pudding, and
it's sock time.
You'll do anything to stop the itch.
So close. Just try.
You feel helpless.
I feel ridiculous.
there's a lot more. It's time for Gut Check, Snack Pack Edition.
Hello, fellas.
Hey!
What up? Today, you're going to be tasting 27 snack pack flavors.
That's a lot.
27? I wish there were that many puddings, but I can see that there's also some gelatinous material.
We will be branching out from just pudding.
Okay.
And I do think we've got some help for you if you need it.
Yes, thank you for providing me with a visual scoring aid. I will be using this for enhanced consistency.
Anytime, buddy. All right, we're going to begin with the chocolate and vanilla pudding category, starting with vanilla.
How much would you say you love pudding in general, Rhett?
Well, I don't love what I just had.
It's vanilla. It's kind of like nothing pudding, which I'm going to give a nice solid 89.
Good God, son!
It's a classic, dude.
To answer your question, how much do I love pudding? Like, I definitely don't dislike pudding.
Your number will be the answer I'm looking for, I think.
But this was not a good pudding. This is a 48.
I understand.
Like, it's just not good.
I understand.
0 sugar vanilla.
Well, this
That's
is going to be
get
better.
worse. It tastes like a building material. It tastes like something you would give to somebody putting together like a popsicle fork.
They did not
glue.
Replace the sugar with another sweetener, it sounds like.
39.
That's high.
29.
28.
I moved mine to 29 just out of respect for Mr. Pudding.
Chocolate.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's legitimately good. But there's so many better chocolate flavors than this.
How could there be anything better?
Mousse is better.
I'm going to leave room. I'm going to give it a 94.
Regular, just chocolate. Milk chocolate's better. Dark chocolate's better. Like actual chocolate.
But within the realm of pudding,
hot
homie.
cocoa's better.
Come on, we're in pudding world.
Okay.
Just say your score.
83.
Milk chocolate.
Oh. Oh.
How is it different?
It's milkier.
Our sources are saying it is milkier.
98.
It is better. 86.
Dove dark chocolate.
Oh, Dove will get in on something.
Isn't Dove a soap?
It's that too.
Ooh, that's good.
I like it. It's not too dark. It's more interesting. 88.
96.
Chocolate fudge.
Come on,
Dang.
y'all.
Hmm. 97.
You think that's better than the last one?
I think it is.
This feels excessive. Can I just say that? Like, yeah, there's too many iterations.
The differences
it's still just chocolate
are
pudding.
pretty subtle.
I'm gonna say that's 84.
Chocolate vanilla.
Well, that's gonna make it worse.
The nice swirl.
It's way better than vanilla.
I mean, it's both in one, dude.
72.
98.
Zero sugar chocolate.
Oh. Oh my gosh! 8. That is
28.
That is awful.
Now we're moving
you know
on
what?
to-
I take that back. I'm gonna give it a 50. It's actually not that bad to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's still chocolatey.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the miscellaneous pudding flavors category.
Thank you.
Starting with lemon.
Don't do this to my pudding.
I actually appreciate this. It tastes like a pie, like a lemon pie.
What is that lemon stuff that you get in a jar? It's got a weird name. Christy will always get it from Trader Joe's.
Lemon
Curd?
in a jar?
Curd. Curd.
Curd that. I like
11.
this. I like it. 72.
Banana cream pie.
Huh.
Boy, that's a fake banana flavor.
It's
But
kind of fun though.
it
And I
tastes
don't
like Laffy
typically
Taffy.
like banana. 59.
69. Tapioca.
What is tapioca? Is that a plant?
I think it's balls. It's kind of like it's
where do the
boba before
balls come
boba came to America.
But where's the source of the balls? You gotta know where your balls come from.
It's like the starch from a root tapioca plant.
Oh.
And it is what boba's made of.
It's a classic pudding flavor that I've never loved, but I don't hate it.
63.
Oh, and there's some on my scoring chart right on 70, so 70.
Brett, do you have a flavor?
Oh, I said something. 60 something. 63.
20 years, dude.
Butterscotch.
Okay, all right. I like butterscotch flavor.
The color of that butterscotch
It's a little too orange for
is
me.
very orange, which is what 30 is on here.
That's
so
a good way to do it.
I'm going with 30.
67.
Cinnabon.
What?
Collab.
Mmm, very cinnamony. Good.
I feel like my issue with pudding, this is really helping me come to grips with it. It just feels like something that's already been digested.
She was adored by everyone except her cat, until she tried Shiva, ignored to adored.
With SafeLight, you can get that fixed now and pay later.
Fix now, pay later?
SafeLight offers flexible payment options and anywhere mobile service, so you can get it fixed here, or here, and pay later. Go to safelight.com today.
SafeLight repair, SafeLight replace.
You know what I'm saying? It has the consistency of something that would come out of another person.
I totally agree, and that's why I love it.
And I just feel like
it does the pressure.
I want to do some work.
No, exactly. That's why I love it. There's no pressure to chew.
Yeah, they got you with the not chewing part.
Like I get performance anxiety with things I have to chew. Pudding is just so comforting. There it is. Now I still chew it.
He does still chew
Don't
it.
get me wrong.
I can hear it.
Cinnabon? Is that what we're on?
Cinnabon.
Did I not say 79?
You did now.
It's not as good as I thought it should be.
59.
Ice cream sandwich.
Okay. They nailed the flavor.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's chocolate and then
and then ice cream flavor.
85.
89.
Fruity Pebbles.
Oh. They nailed the flavor on that too. They just borrowed the flavor. They literally just got the flavor.
That's something.
I don't know how much of that I could eat. 77.
75.
All right, and the last category we have is the Juicy Gels category.
Juicy Gels?
Starting with...
This is because they can't call it Jello, right? Because Jello is another brand.
Yeah. Strawberry.
Now, I feel differently about Jell-O than pudding. Because I'd be really scared if that came out of a person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, you need to see somebody.
Especially if it was in the mold of something.
Right. So I respect the
pretty good.
engineering of Jell-O.
64.
And some people are scared of Jell-O. You know about these folks? Anybody here?
Like
scared of
literally
Jell-O?
scared
Like
of
literally,
Jell-O.
there's a phobia.
Doesn't seem like anyone here.
Okay, good.
I get it though. It
it's
moves.
okay.
It
They
seems
may
like
have already
it's
left the
alive.
room.
That was nice, and it really slid. It slid around and slid right down. 82.
You need to get more in touch with your gut.
Orange.
Taking too long.
I appreciate the citrus of that.
41.
85.
Berry blue.
This is something that doesn't really exist. It's strong. I can imagine the third and the fourth bite of that would be too much. 63.
Oh gosh. 80.
Lemon lime.
80.
80.
So these are like if Gatorade got in on it.
That's exactly what it's like.
Too much like cleaner. Ugh. And I like lemon lime stuff, but this is a fail.
48.
20. 10. 10.
10. Here, you heard him. You heard him.
And if you don't bring in another one, I'll keep lowering it.
Dr. Pepper.
Oh.
Oh no.
It actually doesn't taste enough like regular
This
Dr.
is the
Pepper.
best version of a
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper flavored thing I've ever
That's
had.
why he likes it.
44.
I don't think that you should make Dr. Pepper